This year will be my 49th Little 500. Once you have that experience, you don't want to let it slide. There was just something about it, so I decided, by golly, I was going to ride the Little 500.
As the cherry blossoms come into bloom, beckoning in another spring in the Hoosier State, the stage is set once again for the world's greatest college weekend.
And we are underway in Bloomington.
This year, the entire field looks to dethrone previous 5-year champions, the Cutters, the most decorated team with 12 victories.
5 straight Little 500 championships for the Cutters.
A 6th consecutive trip to the podium could be in the works, but not if the men of Sigma Chi and Delta Tau Delta have anything to say about it. Live from Bloomington, Indiana, this is the 62nd running of the men's Little 500 on HDNet.
Better than 6 decades of education, philanthropy, and competition. The men's edition of the Little 500 in its 62nd year. What a tradition here in Bloomington. Overcast and chilly skies inside Armstrong Stadium as we get set for the pinnacle event of the world's greatest college weekend. Welcome to Bloomington. Rich Cellini alongside former professional cyclist Dylan Casey and a 4-time Little 500 rider and 2-time All-Star Jason Sonnenborn. Dylan, this is a very competitive field.
Absolutely. You know, we've had over 40 teams try to qualify for the 33 teams that have made it to today. And these people are professionals in their preparation. They have full-time mechanics, they have full-time soigneurs, they have training camps, and it's all down to today.
Jason, one of the great traditions in collegiate athletics is here today.
It's the greatest weekend in collegiate, intramural sports, and certainly we're happy to be here. For 6 decades we've been racing bikes, and it's a tradition that Howdy Wilcox helped start. We're so proud of it. We've got a full field here today, packed house, and all the alumni are excited to be back in Bloomington for this bike race.
Before we dive headlong into this year's events, let's pause and reflect back on the people who started this Little 5 from very humble beginnings.
With all of the hype surrounding the Little 500 today, it is sometimes difficult to see the history of the event's humble beginnings. But one of those charged with making sure we never forget is Indiana University class of 1965 alumni, Tom McGlasson.
1950, a gentleman named Howard Wilcox, whose father was a race car driver and had won the Indianapolis 500, was walking through campus and observed a group of students riding bicycles around a dormitory. His mind started working and he decided that he could pattern a bicycle race like the Indianapolis 500, and he did that. The first one was 1951. After the second year of the race, Bill Armstrong took over for Howard Wilcox as the executive director of the IU Foundation, and he took it from just a bike race to a weekend event.
Bit by the Little 500 bug more than 40 years ago as a rider and coach, there was no question that upon graduating from IU, McGlasson would settle down in Bloomington.
This year will be my 49th Little 500. The reason that I stayed here for my career probably has more to do with Indiana University. Being here enabled me to continue to participate. It stays with you, and once you have that experience, you don't want to let it slide.
The legacy left by Bill Armstrong still rings just as clear as it did more than 6 decades ago. And today, McGlasson reflects on a lifetime dedicated to carrying on the tradition of his longtime friend.
Everybody who's been part of this, Bill Armstrong, is extremely proud of all those people. I think of him every race day when the race starts, and I just kind of see his face because I know he's looking down.
Teams to watch here this afternoon.
Well, you can't help but like the Cutters. They've been such a dominant team over the last couple of years. They have the depth. They have great coaching staff. They've actually chosen a really interesting pit location. It's their race to lose today.
Jason, can anybody dethrone the Cutters?
Well, yesterday we saw a sorority beat a dormitory, and today we see two really strong fraternities in the race. Two of those being Beta Theta Pi. Another one that's not on this list that I really like is Phi Delta Theta, finishing second in each of the last 2 years' editions of the Little 500. Phi Delta Theta is hungry, and they have one of the fastest sprinters in the pack, Stephen Sharp.
We look back to a year ago. The Cutters won their 5th consecutive Little 500. I'm not sure this race was ever in doubt. They had one of the most dominant cyclists in the history of this event in Eric Young, and you figured the only way the Cutters might lose is with a pileup and a crash. We had that, yet they still came back and won the race.
Yeah, that's right. You know, crashes can make or break this race, but being prepared for those situations and having the plan already and knowing how to execute makes it so that you can still come back and win the race, and Eric Young showed us that last year.
And you know, as U.S. Pro National Criterium champion, Eric Young knows how to sprint, and he's shown that with 3 Little 500 victories. Last year, nobody could touch him. But Phi Delta Theta, like I said earlier, they're back and they're hungry this year.
For all of the attention paid to the Cutters and Eric Young, you get the sense from this year's edition of the Cutters that they'd like to add their own little legacy. And we caught up with the Cutters on how they got ready for this year's race in the absence of EY.
In the 62-year history of the Little 500, no team has been more dominant than the Cutters.
And the Cutters win its 60th edition of the Little 500 goes to the Cutters. 5 straight Little 500 championships for the Cutters.
Formed in 1984 from broken pieces of a dissolved fraternity, Delta Chi, the founding fathers looked to continue their Little 500 competition. With the release of Breaking Away just 5 years earlier, there was no question the new independent team would be the Cutters.
In 1984, they decided to come back as the Cutters that year. And since then, we've won the most races out of any team up till now, and we're hoping to win a 6th.
With a pedigree of Cutters alumni going on to pro cycling careers, the legacy of dominance runs deep. From 2009 to 2011, no one displayed more cycling supremacy than current Team Bissell rider Eric Young.
Eric's up out of the saddle. He's clearly the fastest man right now.
That's it. Race over.
And Eric Young in celebration.
All I can say is that this race required more of a team than I ever thought it could.
In my mind, he's just another one of my friends. You know, cool, he races for Bissell, and you know, cool, he's like doing really well, and I'm really happy for him. But that doesn't deter me from thinking I can't still win Little 5.
As the Cutters set their sights on the 6th straight victory, they pay homage to their former team members, but also look forward to their day in the spotlight.
Every team, every year, even if you have the same riders, it's different. And moving forward, I honestly think we have one of the strongest teams we've had.
This is our team now. You know, the overall just want to win has something to do with the last 5 years.
Well, the Cutters picked a unique pit position on turn 3.
Yeah, that's right. It's something we haven't really seen lately, and it's going to be curious to see how it plays out. You know, there's 199 laps that get everybody down to the last lap to win the race, and pit selection and how you execute those exchanges is really going to have a big difference on being able to reach that last lap and win the race.
In Cutters choosing that pit, they last won there from that pit in 2008. What stands out to me is it's a dynasty like no other. Delta Chi had 3 championships in a row between 79 and 81. We didn't think anybody could touch it, and now we're looking at 5 in a row from the Cutters. It's a tradition that nobody could have expected.
Now, the 25th running of the Women's Little 500 happened last night for the first time under the lights, and we had a race that will go down as one of the great races in the history of the Little 500 on either the men's or the women's side. It rained like crazy to start with. It was cold, it was wet, and we ended up, you guys mentioned the race could break apart early. We had 5 teams on the lead lap for most of the race.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Teeter really took control of the race from the very beginning, but it was Delta Gamma that came through in the end and really surprised everybody.
Yeah, and what athleticism we see from the women in their 25th year of racing in the Little 500. They're out there in horrible conditions, yet they stayed strong, and what an exciting finish. You can see the Delta Gamma pit there, Coach Chris Wojtowicz for Teeter.
It comes down to the last lap. Cap Jominiak, Cap Alpha Theta had the lead. Casey Dukes of DG is starting to make a move on the outside. Everybody expecting Teeter to make a move. They're just a little bit too little, too late, swinging a little bit too wide. And then a two-woman race coming down for the checkered flags, and it's Dukes and Delta Gamma capturing their second Little 500 championship. What a wonderful night for Delta Gamma and the Lobigs. Pam Lobig, who's down on the infield with Hans Arneson. They'll be our two sideline reporters tonight. She coaches Delta Gamma to victory last night, her sister on the team. What an absolutely outstanding event, a celebration of women's racing.
Yeah, you know, what a great display of coaching and the team really coming together and being the underdog and winning the race.
All right, let's welcome in Hans and Pam. Hans, one of the great riders in the history of this event. And Pam, congratulations on the victory, the first time getting in the winner's circle. So we welcome in, gentlemen, two people with nearly 2 decades of experience, both Little 500 champions in their own right.
Pam, your team had a great race yesterday. They rode on the front all day. They executed a perfect sprint. Congratulations on your first win as a coach.
Thank you so much. Still can't believe it.
You mentioned to me yesterday before the race started that you like to do a lot of coaching before the race even starts and teaching the riders to be their own coach on the track so they know how to respond to scenarios and events that occur. It seems to be a perfect strategy in what they did.
Yeah, it definitely worked out for us. You know, coach can help, but it comes down to the riders and what they do on the track. So Casey knew how to play that last sprint, and then all the other girls set her up perfectly.
Congrats. The track looks fast today, and we've had great weather this spring and even through the winter. The riders should be trained, and I expect we should have a great sprint with many teams today. Like we saw yesterday, 6 teams with the women. I would expect maybe 6, 7 teams to be in the lead lap at the finish, lap 200.
I will visit with you two later on in the show. You know, we figured that the spring series led to that certain group of women to race. If we look at the men's spring series, we should have a wonderful race this afternoon.
Yeah, you know, what folks at home don't understand or realize that there are months and months of preparation and events and qualifying events that happen that lead up to today. And today is really the ultimate pinnacle of the entire year.
Final thought?
Final thoughts is I think we're going to have a fantastic race today. I think it's going to be a large pack sprint finish, and I think we're going to see an upset.
Well, let's hope the men can put together as exciting as a race as the women did last night. We'll come back to Armstrong Stadium and work our way toward the start of the 62nd running of the men's Little 500 here on HDNet.
Still ahead, more of the 62nd running of the men's Little 500 on HDNet. The 2012 Little 500 is sponsored by Schwinn, B97, Pizza X, Canary Cycleware, TIS College Bookstore, Blue Line, Coyote Logistics, Office of Women's Affairs, Underground Printing, Lamar Outdoor Advertising, and by Coca-Cola.
Riders in the ready, trying to stay loose on a chilly afternoon at Armstrong Stadium, and many still making the walk around the track. Pomp and circumstance of this world's greatest college weekend continues, and one of the great events, the men's running of the Little 500.
That's right. You can see the teams just doing a little bit of the pageantry here in the Little 500. They're taking their laps, and it gives them a chance to kind of circle this track. This is all for them, put on entirely by student volunteers on the Indiana University Student Foundation, also the steering committee. These are just kind of their chance to take it all in and flush out some of those butterflies.
Good look at Phi Kappa Sigma, and you know, talk about one of the other teams who will be in competition here in this year's race with the uncertain weather in the Midwest. You know, a lot of teams head south for the winter, but Delta Tau Delta and their 5th-year senior R.J. Stewart, one of the top bike rooms on campus. We took a tour before their big day in the spotlight.
Looking to build on top 5 finishes in each of the last 3 years, the men of Delta Tau Delta set their sights on the prize.
We really haven't had any competitive finishes until 1973 with a 3rd place finish. And up until then, we've been dry until 2009 when we came the closest to winning it with a 2nd place finish. Since 2009, we've been having top 5 finishes consistently, and we'll be looking to do that again this year.
The presence of an adequate off-season training facility can be the difference maker in any team's preparation for race day. With an abundant alumni support system, Delta Tau Delta now sports one of the most impressive bike rooms on campus.
We basically got a 30 by 20 foot room with new rollers, bike stands, 50-inch television, basically great training through winter.
It's really everything you need to win a bike race and more. I've been in pretty much every bike room on campus, and a lot of them range from just closets to small rooms.
We've got great alumni support behind us right now, especially with our great finishes the past few years.
Anchored by fifth-year senior R.J. Stewart, Delta Tau Delta looks to capitalize on his veteran experience to stand crowned as the 2012 Little 500 champions.
So don't worry about it. Good job. I might not be the strongest guy out there, but I think I have some experience in summer racing and things like that with guys that are much better than me. I'll know what to do with 10 laps to go.
I think we got one of the best riders here, RJ. He's gonna probably string out the field pretty early. Hopefully we can get him off the bike and keep on pushing the pace real early in the race and make some selections of teams and just keep on hammering it.
Their level of preparation just doesn't end in the bike room.
No, and they bring it here to the track. They've got Courtney Bishop, you see down there, is one of their coaches. Ken Nowakowski, who runs the velodrome up in Indianapolis, is also down in the pit. And what they've done, I've never seen before. They have 12 different handlebar setups for 4 riders and unique seat heights for each rider on the track. The amount of preparation they put into this, I've never seen it before.
Yeah, one of the things that makes it unique about this race is that you have 4 riders sharing 2 bikes. And so that means that you typically have to have riders that are closely related in terms of size, but switching handlebars is something I've never seen.
And the only thing I can think of is that you may have a sprint setup and a time trial setup and what you're comfortable with, and obviously there's backups in case you have an accident, but obviously they've put a lot of time and money into the preparation.
Well, one part of the race that ends up being commonplace are the crashes that happen in a Little 500. We had a very clean women's race last night. We can hope for a clean men's race here this afternoon. The crashes are a big part of the thrill and excitement of the Little 500.
Oh, and there was a crash in the back of the field. Sometimes riders just overlap. Oh, and the cutter riders, we just had a crash.
And a pile up.
Huge crash. That's Phi Delta Theta, Sigma Chi. Cutters are down.
And we've got our first crash at the back of the pack.
Absolute carnage. We had a guy on his top tube here. Team number 30.
Oh, and a spill by Kappa Gamma.
They're not having quite the day they had hoped for there.
Oh, look at that, just get away and some of the bumping and another little mishap.
Just shot all the way inside, and what really hurts about that is that you just hit your shoulder and your collarbone right on that cement gutter. Oh, that was not a good exchange. And we already have a crash. Yeah, it's really just chain reaction crashes,
Oh, and that one you really can't see what happened.
Looked like somebody got stuck on the gutter there and went all the way to the outside.
Another rider still down. There's a thought last night that in addition to the excellent athleticism of the women racing, that also the rain may have compacted the track a little bit.
And it really gave an opportunity to see a pass out of turn 4. There's always a groove where the cinders get very compact close to the gutter, but last night you saw a lot of speed coming out of turn 4 from Delta Gamma.
All right, we'll go down for the invocation and join Father Stan.
Stan Grongowski from the St. Paul Student Catholic Center for today's invocation.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we gather together to celebrate the adventure you have given us, the adventure of life. In this race, we see the reflection of this adventure. We see it in the challenge of how we are to live. And we thank you for the opportunity this challenge of today offers. We ask that you allow these men the opportunity to compete to their fullest capacity. We ask you to watch over them that they may be safe. We ask you to strengthen them in seeing your abiding presence. We ask that the disciplines they have worked so hard in developing may be fully exhibited and sustained through this race and throughout their lives. We ask you, Almighty God, to be with them and guide them, that as you judge this race, they may be found today and always to play well with others. As this day unfolds, loving God, allow us to feel in it your presence, your guidance, and your protection. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Our colors this afternoon are being presented by the Pershing Rifles Color Guard from Indiana University's ROTC program. IU Pershing Rifles, a competitive drill and honor squad, consistently receives high marks in regional and national competition. We invite you to watch skyward for parachuters from Skydive Indianapolis carrying the American flag, the state of Indiana flag. Please join our riders and coaches in celebrating America's freedom and those who now protect it. We especially honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Please stand, remove your caps. It is my great honor to introduce to you from the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music, a two-time Grammy Award winner, performer extraordinaire, ladies and gentlemen, Sylvia McNair, as she presents our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Right on cue, the Skydivers enter Armstrong Stadium. Beautiful.
Well, you can see from the flag how windy it is. Definitely going to have a factor in today's race, although not the normal headwind, tailwind down the front and back stretch like we're used to in past years.
Yeah, Dylan, we've got a little crosswind, similar to what we had in the women's race last night, where it's coming from the north.
Yeah, great job by the Skydivers to bring the flag down to the
On
field.
time and on the mark.
That's right.
Another good crowd here this afternoon for the Little Five.
And I got chills down my spine as I heard the students singing along with our national anthem. It really is a beautiful thing.
Well, another tradition here at the Little 500. Here is straight, no chaser, back home in Indiana.
still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home, back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the dreamlight on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana
Back home again in Indiana, and much like the national anthem, you saw riders out there mimicking the words. It's part of the tradition.
Yeah, it's part of the tradition. My dad used to sing it every time when we came home, when we entered into the airport. It's something out here. He didn't have a great voice, but it's something.
But it helped you learn the words for when you were going to ride in the Little Five.
Right, and it does give you chills down the spine, and it is a tradition just like the Little 500. You can see the bikes lined up, 11 rows deep, 3 bikes per row, modern after the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, that's right. We even have actually one of the cars from the Indianapolis
official
500.
pace car.
Yeah. So what really gets me about this, and it's obviously a very exciting event, but it's also a bike race, and the riders come to the line so far ahead of time before they actually get to start. They've got some time to kill. So you see a lot of the riders out there sitting down on chairs and trying to stay loose. You'll see a last-minute massage or shake out of the legs.
It's really actually the worst part of the race is waiting for it to start. You know, a lot of the riders, especially on a day like this, it's in the mid-40s, it's windy, it's cold, they're anxious, they want to get the race started.
Jason, in your 4 years, were you ever out first having to wait and stretch?
Oh yeah, we started on the pole at team number 1 position, and that it is a lot of time, but I tell you what, it's something you just never forget, because these guys are all friends. You can see them greeting each other right now. They put 4 years into getting prepared for this race, and it's really a lifelong memory they're creating.
Sportsmanship is in vogue here at the Little 500, one of the enjoyable parts to watch. And last night in the women's race and the rest of it, it was certainly very enjoyable. All right, and let's go back down for the words we've all been waiting for.
Smart. Keep your heads up. Godspeed and good luck. And now the words we've all been waiting for. Gentlemen, mount your Schwinn bicycles.
A reminder to the riders and officials, we'll have 3 laps before the green flag
mount the Schwinn bicycle, and we'll take a few laps to get loose before we get the race underway.
Facing the starting field for the 60-second
That's right, 3 laps. The first 2 will be at a very slow pace just to shake down the bikes and a little bit more Little 500 pageantry. Then that last lap, you'll see the pace car pick up, and we'll eagerly await the green flag.
And for more on the bikes, let's visit with Hans and Pam.
So as you can see, these bikes are pretty basic. Starting out with the gears, it's a single gear bike. So the whole race, every rider is riding the same gear. The only way to go faster is to pedal faster. And then with the brakes, similar to the bikes you rode when you were little, to brake you actually pedal backward, and this allows them to skid and helps with their exchanges. And then the rest of the bike, really no modifications allowed other than the saddle and the handlebars.
That's right, Pam. Each team gets 2 Schwinn bicycles. They're made every year brand new for the teams. They come stock. You can change out a couple things like Pam mentioned. This one's special. This was the 25th anniversary for the women's Little 500. Both the men's and the women's bikes say this. But this really is the great equalizer, because the only way you can make this bike go faster is not by changing gears, just by pedaling harder and faster.
All right, thank you, Hans. Pam, Jason, what happens to the old bikes? Do you happen to have one in your closet?
Oh, I've got a couple of them.
A couple of them.
You know, the teams keep them to train on in future years. And right, so a lot of these teams, there's 4 people in the race, 4 guys in the race, but there's 6 or 7 people training and rookies trying to get ready for next year. And so they continue to use all those old bikes and ride that 46 by 18 gear around town to class as well.
Yeah, you know, the other thing to take note of is that, yeah, they have a coaster brake, no hand brakes, which means it's a little more difficult to modulate your speed. And as the pack is racing together and slows down and speeds up, sometimes that's actually what causes the crashes, because people aren't able to brake fast enough.
Riders circling the track. And let's set our grid. First with row 1.
Well, on row 1, we talked a little bit Beta Theta Pi. They've got a rookie sprinter, William Craigie, who could come out and surprise the field today. Black Key Bulls, another one of our favorites, and Christian Student Foundation, sponsorship from Commercial Service there on the front row. Phi Delta Theta in the second row, we picked them as one of our favorites. They're in the white jersey, representing our Spring Series winners. And Phi Gamma Delta, tremendous tradition, with 5 or so wins in their house. They are eager and hungry for a victory.
You can't go anywhere and talk about this race without mentioning the Cutters. 12 overall wins the last 5 straight.
It's really unparalleled. Their coaches, Jason Fowler and Jim Kirkham, are looking for number 13 today and look for a strong showing by our team in yellow. Delta Tau Delta, another one of our favorites. They qualified just after the Cutters, and you see them pitting next to the Cutters and lining up just behind them. Look for them and their leader, RJ Stewart, to mark all day.
Delta Tau Delta, a little bit like, I'm getting the feeling it's like a little brother against the Cutters. Whatever the Cutters do, Delta Tau Delta's going to do.
That's right. I was having breakfast with the Cutters this morning, and Delta Tau Delta showed up, and the word on the street is they not only pit next to the Cutters, they follow them around town and try to emulate a little bit of what the Cutters have going.
One more warm-up lap. We'll do the pace lap here.
You can see Alpha Tau Omega in row 6. That's Hans Arneson's former team, our esteemed colleague.
They haven't quite been the same since Hans departed.
Haven't quite been the same, but look for them to come back. And Don's House, a team with tremendous tradition, participating in the majority of our races and a couple victories. And then Delta Chi in row 9, 8 victories for Delta Chi. Sigma Alpha Epsilon back in the race. Phi Kappa Psi, another team with tremendous tradition. 7 victories for Phi Kappa Psi, with a full field for the men in the 62nd running of the Little 500.
Here we go. Into the final turn, the green flag will come out. And the 62nd running of the Little 500 is underway.
Right off the start, you see Beta Theta Pi wanting to take. They're taking charge with that pole position and stringing out from the front. I saw him out of the saddle, accelerating, Dylan, right out of the gate.
Yeah, really setting the tone for the race. Cutter's already coming up on the outside, going to move up into the top position. You know, this is the very important part of the race because everybody's trying to establish their position, get to the front and stay out of problems, because inevitably we see a crash sometimes in the opening laps.
Cutter's wasting no time, guys. They started in row 3. They're already on the rivet, driving the race at the front. That's Timothy Nixon on the bike for the Cutters.
And Nixon gets the start for the Cutters in that familiar yellow jersey, and now they'll drop back a bit into the turn and let some other people do the work. Phi Delta Theta in front.
Well, the Cutters need to be conscious now. They've drifted back a little bit as you see Phi Delta Theta pull through with Black Key Bulls sitting very tightly there on second, right where you want to be, right on the groove of the track.
You know, the riders sitting in 10th, 11th, and 12th position can kind of get stuck it's really difficult to try to advance position when you're on the inside pole and you actually have to go on the outside. Of course, the challenge there is you kind of get into the loose track, and we see some of the riders slipping a little bit.
Steve Sharp, Phi Delta drops back, allows Black Key Bulls to take the lead.
Oh, and that's Delta Tau Delta in second, right? So you've seen them move up very, very quickly as well. I expect that's RJ Stewart on the bike for Delta Tau Delta. A good start for them moving up from row 4.
Indeed it is RJ Stewart on the bike for Delta Tau Delta. He'll keep the lead into turn 1.
First crash.
And it's a huge one. Huge one in turn 1.
Yellow flag is out.
And the Peloton goes down. And
I mean, huge crash. Cutters were down. You can see the cutters are actually calling for a bike. There's all kinds of problems.
And here's where their pit position is going to cause a problem, because they're going to have to run that bike 3/4 of the way around the track.
You're absolutely right, Rich. I mean, it is a hustle, and the Cutters rider did not stop, which was a good thing, and got his bike over to turn 2. That's Kevin DePass getting on the bike for the Cutters. Phi Delta Theta avoided the wreck, riding up front. Delta Tau Delta avoided the wreck, riding up front. And you see Team 21, Acacia.
That's right. Now that the yellow flag is out, the riders have to maintain the position that they have relative to the leaders, or else they'll get what's called a creeping penalty.
Another look at the pileup.
So we see the pack going into turn 1. It's bunching at this point. It's slowed down. Cutters in the middle of the field.
Somebody on the inside.
Now wobble and a shove.
Right, it looks like behind the green jersey, just a little, probably a catch of a wheel, the front wheel, and you can see 10 to 15 teams going down there.
Pi Kappa Phi on that, I think starting it and doing the bump into Fiji, and then the whole pile came down.
It looks like we're going back to green now.
So we're watching now.
And Cutters is a half a lap down. They're gonna have to make that up immediately. Of course, the other teams know that the Cutters are down. We have Phi Delta Theta on the front right now, really trying to drill it and put Cutters and the teams that got caught up in that crash into some serious difficulty.
Delta Tau happy to aid in that and try to bury the Cutters.
Yeah, right now they just, it's very early on in the race. Cutters right now just needs to focus, get back, make contact with the rest of the riders, and eventually work their way back up to the front.
The Cutters have been in this position before.
Absolutely. We saw that last year with a crash, and they were able to recover.
And the guy on the bike, Kevin DePass, interesting enough, he rode last year. He was a part of that team that made up the gap. And they've got some teams to work with here because it was such a big pileup. So you can see Sig up on the front drilling it. And the words patience come to mind. You can't make up too much distance too quickly.
Yeah, right now Delts and Phi Delta Theta know that the Cutters are off the back by about a half a lap, so they're really working together to make the pace brutally fast.
Well, we've had excitement, but your point is well made. We're 7 laps in of 200.
That's right. It is really early on. The Cutters have been in this position before. Really what they need to do right now is be patient and work together. They've already made up a quarter lap.
The pass, the Cutters still working around that far turn. Delta Upsilon and Christopher Paslano.
And you can see Kevin from Cutters looking for some help. He doesn't want to have to do it all by himself.
And so you're going to see Sigma Chi on the front, a team that's very, very strong, finishing the top 5 last year. And you can see how far back the Cutters are, more than a full straightaway. Our 5-time defending champion looking to close that gap, but as Dylan said, it is very, very early, so patience comes to mind. There's going to be a number of exchanges that shake out. A differentiating factor is if you once you're lapped, it tends to be almost impossible to make it back up. So if the guys on the front right now, Beta Theta Pi, Phi Delta Theta, Sigma Chi, Black Key Bulls could somehow get a lap, that would be a differentiating factor.
Absolutely. I mean, they're really going to work together right now to distance themselves from the Cutters.
Lap 10 of 200.
You know, and it just goes to show you that so early on in the race, something can happen that can completely change the outcome.
Dylan, you often said that a race has different ebbs and flows to it, and you feel that throughout a race. There's different turns.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, you kind of have the anxiety and pressure of getting the race started and establishing the position, and that's all in anticipation of that first crash, and the riders all want to be at the front so that they don't get caught behind that crash. And of course, we saw what happened to the cutters because they didn't have great position.
Pass still pedaling hard. We'll welcome in Hans Arneson. Hans, your thoughts on the necessary patience when you're involved in a crash early in a race?
Well, I think you're right. You need to have some patience about that, but you also need to try to make up that lap as quickly as you can, that gap. You don't want the leaders to get any more of an advantage. When I crashed in 2005, it took us about 50 laps, 50 to 60 laps, I think, to close it down. The leaders are putting the pressure on, and they're not going to let up until that gap is closed. So I'd say you need to get out there like the cutters are and ride as aggressive as possible, try to close it as quickly as possible.
And Hans, when you talk about pressure, they're out there riding 35, 36-second laps right now, so they're moving with on a windy day.
That's right. It's windy out there, but you know, the cutters are strong and they're deep. They need to keep doing time trials like this. You know, wait for the leading pack to get slowed up a little bit. They're going to get tired at some point, and hopefully the cutters are strong enough to tire them out.
Blackheath Bulls coming in, trying for an exchange. It was not smooth.
Yeah, you see two teams out there doing exchanges, Beta Theta Pi and Blackheath Bulls, both doing bike exchanges. And it just kind of looked a miss of a hand. You want to have that right arm locked in a 90-degree angle, ready to receive the bike. It just looked like a little bit of a miss, but they're able to recover.
Cutters doing an exchange. Timothy Nixon hopping on the bike. And back to the lead pack.
And it looks like our pole team Beta is currently serving a penalty.
They're going to serve a penalty. They're not in yet, but they have to serve it in the first 20 laps, Dylan. So
that's right.
They were getting a fresh rider on the bike. Some of Beta's strategy is often to do short sets, really fast sets.
That was it right there.
No, that's not.
Oh, that was a different team.
That was team number 32, Kappa Sigma, serving their pre-race penalty.
And why do teams end up with penalties?
It can be a number of things. It could be not doing your the time that rookies need to be at the track. It could be something like not showing up for a quals meeting or not doing your pit boards. It's really the Student Foundation's way of making the race safe and making sure that everybody has participated in the spring events.
Sigma Chi, Phi Delta Theta right now pushing the pace. Beta just making their way back up onto the back of the front peloton after serving their penalty. Cutters still a half a lap down.
Phi Delta Theta going to come in and make an exchange.
And that's their hot shot rider, Steven Sharp, getting off the bike, giving it to Sven Gardner. Good exchange there for the Phi Delts. Excellent exchange. They're going to group back together with Beta Theta Pi.
Timothy Nixon still pedaling hard for the cutters, trying to make up the gap that was lost during the first crash.
Oh, and you see the Acacia rider just giving it their all right there. Acacia, I believe Theta Chi's on the lead lap. Sigma Chi in red, Delta Tau Delta. Oh, and it's Acacia Exchange, something unique out there. The Acacia Exchange is a ghost exchange, at which point there's no one touching the bike, and they pulled that off beautifully.
Yeah, it could be a little bit more difficult on a day like this where the track conditions aren't as, you know, ideal for that type of exchange.
And the wind kind of goes into that a little bit. Nobody touching the bike at one point in time. The wind could cause the bike to wobble a little bit. So this is something unique. Only Acacia and Kappa Alpha Theta do this exchange where the rider hops off the back of the bike and lets it fly. And it's a little bit of, you got to trust it at that point in time.
Bortz gives it off to John Ferry, and Ferry working his way through the pack.
Yeah, you see, good exchange. He's right back in there. I have word that Bortz is an exceptional rider with a good couple little 5 seasons under his belt.
You know, right now we're at the front. They're all kind of looking around at each other. They're not pulling at the same velocity that
that they were right after the crash. This is a good opportunity for the cutters to really pull back some time on the front group. A lot of the teams are doing their first couple of exchanges, completing the first set of the race. You can see as the riders are kind of fanning out, going into the corners 2 and 3 wide, that the pace is slowing down a little bit.
And that would be to the advantage of the cutters.
That's right. This is the chance, this is the opportunity, the moment that the cutters really need right now to make contact with the front group. You know, we're only 18 laps into the race, and we're down to about 10 teams on the lead lap.
Thought Hans made an interesting point that you want to close that gap as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's right.
Blackie Bulls in the pit. Burn, does that need any other descriptor?
No, it really doesn't. It's this art of doing these exchanges. The idea is that you want to put your rider in as close to the back of the lead group as possible so that he doesn't have to use up as much energy to maintain contact.
Right, so it's a burn, it's a gap, but what the Blackie Bulls riders is doing right now is just laying it down. Really kind of, he's on the rivet and he's got a tremendous gap for his teammate. This is really exactly how you want to do it.
And they'll come in and make the exchange.
Yeah, I mean, that was really a textbook exchange in some ways. He put his
hands it off to Powell.
Powell's actually off the front of the main group, which means in some ways he can kind of soft pedal a little bit.
Grant Powell on the bike for Blackie Bulls. The 62nd running of the Little 500 from Bloomington. We'll step aside and come back for more racing at Armstrong Stadium here on HDNet.
I know that in life things just don't happen automatically and you have to put a lot of effort into them. So I think this is a good example of how that works.
Teaching you to be resilient, you know, to rely on your teammates and trust your teammates, it's definitely given me skills that I think will carry over into the real world, whether it be in the workforce or raising a family and things like that.
I've learned so much from my teammates and how to be a good leader, all on our own really. And I feel like that's an experience that I couldn't have found anywhere else.
Really just learning what motivates people and how to get the most out of them, I think is a valuable skill in any leadership situation. So getting that out of something I enjoy as much as a bike race has been a truly incredible experience.
Racing here in Armstrong Stadium, and that's a really nice piece right there, Jason, about the leadership. And look, Upsilon having a little trouble here with the bike, Jake.
Yeah. Right, he's pointing to it. He's letting his pit know he needs to make a change, right? It just doesn't seem like the pit's ready. But the other big story while we were away is really the cutters closing the gap. They've just come in for an exchange, but they had it down to 100 meters at that point. Sam Harbison put in a tremendous effort. You see Tom Walsh back on the bike for the cutters. They're working hard to try to close this down.
Blackie Bulls do another exchange. Rex Rafferty, senior, back on the bike for Blackie Bulls. And the cutters really putting it down right now, trying to close the gap and get back into the lead pack.
Yeah. They've got a fresh rider on the bike right now, Dylan. So as Hans mentioned earlier, now's a good time to close that gap. You know, the guys with the longer sets close it down a little bit, and then if you've got a burst in you like Thomas has right now, he's trying to bridge that gap and catch onto the tail end of that, really a 15-20 team pack right now.
Yeah, with Beta Theta Pi coming in to do an exchange, it actually increased the pace and made it really difficult for the cutters to come back. But still got about 10 to 20 meters to close, and of course it's getting challenging with all the riders doing the exchanges and coming back into the back of the bunch.
Well, you see some teams reacting. Delts was off the front. Now ACAC's pulling, which is Acacia, but Delts is coming in for an exchange, which isn't going to help the speed. And cutters is starting to make contact right now. You can see him making contact with Sigma Nu there on the back.
Yeah, once they make contact, then they're able to maneuver up fairly quickly.
Yeah.
We've seen that historically, that once they get back into the pack like they are right now, we've got another
Sigma Nu rider down.
Yeah, but a solo one. And Brookshire able to get back up on the bike. And now he'll hand it back. And he gives it off to...
Clearly frustrated. It looked like he just slipped off the handlebars.
So Steve Farah on the bike for Sigma Nu.
Well, you can just see a number of exchanges happening.
Yeah, bump and a tire rub right there.
The groups bumped together, and that was a Delta Tau Delta rider on the outside that was just looking to sneak through. But at the end of the day, Dylan, as you know, you've got to be strong with the bike and not let something like that happen.
Yeah, it's really tricky, and that's what makes these exchanges so dangerous, is because you have riders going up and down the track at the same time, and one little overlap of the wheel and you're kissing cinders.
And gentlemen, the Cutters are back with the pack.
Well, we knew that was going to happen. I think it was just too early in the race for them to be out. So many laps to go, so much can happen. It's really hard. These riders are so equally matched in terms of strength. Cutters having the experience of knowing what to do in a situation like that. Again, having a plan, being able to execute it, not getting too nervous.
And the Cutters practice this type of thing in practice. You know, for months you're out here practicing. What they do is the pack's going around similar to what you have today. You do drills where you have to serve a penalty or you have to take a half lap back, which they were able to do successfully there. And it does hurt the Cutters in the sense that they expended a lot of energy there, right? Yeah. Dylan, so I mean, you're losing a little bit of your energy for the finish, but this early in the race with only 30 laps scored does favor him. It gives him a chance to recover. So we'll see if some of the fraternities, which are all grouped together, Sigma Chi, Beta Theta Pi, Phi Delta Theta, Delta Tau Delta, see if they can kind of take advantage of this on our independent team, the Cutters.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see the Cutters making their way back up to the front. The other teams, again, it's the other teams that have to force the race. The Cutters don't, especially at this point since they've just put out a huge effort in getting back into the race.
You know, one team that's been really impressive so far, another one of our independents, Black Key Bulls.
Yes.
They're coming in for an exchange. There you see a bike exchange, and in that scenario, the rider getting on just needs to touch the arm of the rider getting off within the distance of their pit. He did that pretty successfully. He's got to close a small gap.
Well, the most dominant team ever, the Cutters. They're no strangers to the ever-present target right there on their back. And we've got another pile up on the backside.
Oh, and you can see the bikes tangled together. You see riders scrambling. What you've got to do is just keep it moving. Looks like you see a Delta Chi jersey down. And some anguish to those cinders on the arms and sometimes on the face. Those things really hurt.
Yeah, you know, it's one of the benefits of being so cold out is the riders are wearing leg warmers and knee warmers, so they won't have as many cinder trophies to show on later on.
Eric Peters shaken up for Delta Chi.
Here's the crash, just a little bit of overlap of the wheel. You see that slowing down and not being able to react quick enough.
That's what you talked about with no handbrakes.
That's right, it's just really hard because, you know, you have to pedal backwards, which means you have to really be consciously trying to slow down.
And the slip
and when
the pile up.
An indication that the pace is getting slower is when you see them 4 or 5 wide like that. And when the pace gets slower, that's what, as Dylan mentioned, you've got to use some kind of braking mechanism, which you don't have. And you saw an overlap of wheels, a little rub.
Caution flag is out.
So we're under yellow right now. Hopefully it looks as if we're just gonna, medical staff paying attention to the rider that's down.
Alpha Tau Omega and the medical staff on hand will tend to the injured rider.
Fortunately, because this is a closed track event, plenty of staff and medical personnel here to attend to any of the riders that get injured during the race.
And they will take all of the necessary precautions to ensure the rider's safety.
And hopefully it's just something like a collarbone, which is a common cycling injury. What you saw him end up there in the gutter, which is, nothing's very forgiving. The cinders aren't very forgiving, but the gutter's certainly not a forgiving space to go down.
Well, the most dominant team in the field, the Cutters, used to having the target on their back, Sigma Chi, Delta Tau Delta, and the Black Key Bulls, all trying to make sure that a 6-peat is not in today's cards.
Much like the New York Yankees, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Los Angeles Lakers, the Cutters have made a name for themselves as the dynasty team on the IU campus. But with great success comes the inevitable isolation, as every team in the field seeks to lock the door and throw away the key.
I do get a sense that we are very much in their crosshairs. They're doing the exact same stuff as us. They're pouring their heart and soul into training, and their philosophy may be exactly the same as us. They just, for luck or whatever reason, it's not coming together for them.
I like it. It kind of fuels my fire. Track time's go time is the way we view it. You know, when we're on the track, it's go time. We're not gonna be nice. We're gonna act like we're racing. We're gonna do what we need to do. Be your friends off the bike, you know. We're the nicest dudes out there. I mean, we'll joke and we'll do what you want, but on the track, it's a different story.
But there's no secret formula. As Delta Tau Delta and Sigma Chi look to end the Cutters dynasty, they agree on one thing: no one trains harder than their independent opponents.
Cutters have been dominant the past couple years because they train hard and they know the race very well.
The Cutters really do train hard year after year. They always have 4 deep guys that can hold a wheel and stay in the race.
I really don't think there's any secret to it. I think they're committed to their race and they train hard and they have good coaching.
There's no substitute for hard work, and I mean, they put the time in. Everyone sees them out on the road in the fall, in the spring, and working hard at the track.
Ride your own race, you ride within yourselves, and you know, I've raced against Eric Young, who was a lot faster than the Cutters this year, and any one of those guys over there right now. And I'm confident that I can win a sprint with any one of those guys.
Yeah, we shall find out as this race continues. Lap 39 of 200. 62nd edition of the men's Little 500, and the Cutters still right there in the thick of things. Theta Theta Pi sporting the green jersey, Cutters in yellow.
Back to green while we are away. You see Cutters on the front, you know, taking control of the race, much like we saw in the women's race last night with Teeter. Again, you know, it's really up to the other teams to make this race, because Cutters knows how this normally plays out. We're coming down to a last lap.
Well, let's check in with Pam Lobig.
Yeah, it looks like it was Sean Zimba that went down, possibly a collarbone. You know, it's always a shame when someone wrecks, but that was a historical family in the Little 500. They have 4 siblings: Lauren, Lindsay, Sean, and Steve, all of which have ridden Little 500. So hope he recovers well and wish the best for ATO for the rest of the race.
Thank you, Pam. But when you're one rider down, Jason, what's that do to your team?
It obviously affects your stamina and your pop, but one rider down you can handle, and I think they started 4 strong, but it does impact them, Rich. It's hard to go with 3 or 2.
And the Cutters gonna head out and do a little sprint out before they do an exchange. And on that 3rd turn position, the Cutters exchange the bike.
Kevin DePass getting on the bike there for the Cutters. He's got, it's interesting, if you get a shot of his shoes, that's Thomas Walsh getting off the bike for the Cutters. Kevin DePass they're trying to compromise on the seat height, so he's got, you know, 4 or 5 inches on the bottom of his shoes because he's not tall enough to reach the pedals, but he's a really strong rider and able to get back together with Beta and Sigma Chi there.
I guess that means he's 4 to 5 inches taller today.
Well, one of the unique parts of the race is the bike. One of the parts of the bike is you just have pedals that we're all used to riding on.
Right, not a whole lot's changed since 1951. You know, we're riding the same gears. The rims are a lot. Rims are a lot better. The bikes are made of, you know, aluminum now as opposed to steel, so they're lighter. There are some things that have changed, but some things that haven't, like the frame size, like the gear, like only having 2 bikes for 4 riders.
You see Cutters putting out a lot of effort to maintain that front position, especially after being caught up in that crash early on.
Well, it changes your mindset a little bit. Sometimes it can make you a little bit angry. right? You know, cutters, I don't see them sitting too far back now, as you've commented, Dylan. They want to be on the front. We know accidents can't happen out here. So you see maybe a little bit of change of position.
Well, they're strong enough to ride on the front all day long, especially at this current pace where they're not really racing. So there's a lot more upside for them to be in the first or second position than to try to conserve energy by sitting fourth or fifth and potentially getting caught up in a crash. It's really where the strength of the Cutters team and these other teams that train so much and focus on trying to have enough endurance and stamina to really be able to spend the energy of riding on the front all day long.
And you see Sigma Chi on the front. Sigma Chi is one of those teams that does have the stamina to stay on the front. They've got Adam Fish and Andrew Moreau, returning seniors with strong performances these last couple of years. They've got a lot of stamina. From what I understand, they're more like a diesel engine as opposed to looking for a sprint finish.
And those two with a large legacy of little fives between them. They are very experienced.
You see a Delta Tau Delta exchange there. I think that's just a good gap by the Delta Tau Delta rider, which he got as the pack slowed down a little bit.
What's your take on the pace right now?
The pace is quite slow. I mean, when what's happened is when you have a 5-time defending champion like the Cutters, they showed a lot of panache early, bringing that group back together, and now they're more comfortable, and the other teams need to react to that. We've got a lot of teams on the lead lap. We've got 8 teams on the lead lap, making for a huge race, and what's going to have to happen is if somebody wants to string this out, now's the right time. Those 8 teams are Beta Theta Pi, Delta Tau Delta, Black Key Bulls, Theta Chi, Acacia, Sigma Chi, and of course the team known as the Cutters.
Anybody on that list of 8 surprise you?
Well, there's a couple to sneak in there. Acacia is a team with a lot of history. They've moved up from what row did they start in? They started way back, row 7. So quite a performance so far by Acacia. Theta Chi has moved up from row 5. They're team number 14. So you've seen some teams start farther back in the pack and making up a lot of ground.
Well, we've seen Acacia do some nice exchanges and use all their riders to really put themselves in a good position as we approach the quarter point of the race.
Yeah, and Acacia's just got a lot of history, Rich, on campus. They had a great rider, Peter Nover, in the early 90s, and a good coaching staff. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Kevin Baines and Kurt Gensheimer coaching the Acacia team.
Probably Delta Theta doing an exchange there.
There's the 4 riders for Acacia.
And from what I understand, Gregory Boris is someone to reckon with out here. So if the other teams haven't spotted Acacia and know what to work with there, Acacia is a contender. Black Key Bulls off the front there. You see a little head bob indicating he's got full throttle in effect. He's going in for an exchange. Passing some teams that are a lap down or so.
Delta and Flan with the exchange as well. And the Bulls do the exchange from Ken on to Stephen Miss, who's the captain.
Heck of exchange there by Black Key Bulls. Great burn, as Dylan called it earlier. Black Key Bulls are really setting their team up for success, getting great gaps.
Well, yeah, you saw the Black Key Bulls, coming out of the last pit box in turn 1, basically jumping right back into the front of the bunch.
I was in the Black Key Bulls pit earlier today. Rex Rafferty, their sprinter, I mean, he looks like he can bench press like 250 pounds, 300 pounds. He's huge. He had ridden for Air Force before joining the Black Key Bulls, and I tell you, I'd be scared to go up against him in a sprint. He looks like he can not only kind of crank on the pedals, but crank on the bars and get maximum acceleration.
Yeah, that's definitely something that plays to their benefit on a race like this. There's no mountains to climb. So it all comes down to just pure brute force.
Acacia and the Cutters, along with Sigma Chi. So we're a quarter of the way through the 62nd running of the men's Little 500, but we haven't been without incident. Huge pile up to start with. We've had some trouble on the exchange. The Cutters were caught in a pile up early. They have managed to recover. We'll take a timeout and come back to Armstrong Stadium with more racing on HDNet.
I think the legacy I want to leave behind this year is with the 25th running is just to continue that on. I would love to see in 25 years from now me coming back and it being the 50th running of the women's race.
I want my kids to go to Indiana and my kids to ride in the race, you know, and I want it to still be around when I'm older so I can come back and watch my riders, you know, compete.
As for a legacy that I'd like to leave on the track is just a continuation of the family culture that is growing.
Even if we don't win this year, definitely coming into a program where it was struggling and turning it around and making it into something stronger after I leave is a victory in my book.
So we're still watching.
Back inside Armstrong Stadium, caution flag is out. We had a crash on turn 3 while we stepped away.
It's been out for 2 or 3. You see the crash here.
Yeah, you know, a lot of these riders that went down actually were not on the lead lap.
Yeah, you see Sigma Nu going down. We think Lambda Chi Alpha.
Yeah, Sigma Nu just having a horrible day so far.
Delta Upsilon.
Just shows you how much bad luck can really just ruin a day. I see a bent wheel. Looked like Sigma Nu also had a flat front tire that they had to change.
You know, mechanics really come into play. If we get a chance to see some of the mechanics down on the field, they've got a number of wheels and
injured rider from CSF Cycling.
It's really unfortunate. They had such a good qualifying round.
Yeah, it's a Christian Student Foundation, CSF.
Green flag back out. Phi Delta Theta, Cutters on the front again. You know, and I think you aren't going to see the Cutters move out more than position 2.
They learned their lesson early in this race.
Yeah.
And sometimes it changes strategy, because if you see a guy maybe riding too far back in the pack, it's time. The coaches do not let that happen, and they're out there pulling that guy out of the pack or telling him to move up. You've got 2 options. You see a little acceleration.
The team has been impressive in the quarterway point, in my eyes, is Acacia.
Oh, Acacia's ridden a phenomenal race. You heard Greg Borch just talk about kind of returning to tradition. They've got some victories, and it's been a while, but Acacia is hungry today. As is Delta Tau Delta, a team that has not won, but is obviously putting a lot of money and time and effort into this race. You've got to respect what they're doing today. And you see the Delta Tau Delta rider, some of the guys today, Dylan, are wearing leg warmers. You know, what's kind of the advantage there between covering up your legs or going bare skin?
Well, you know, normally you don't like to race with leg warmers because even on a cold day, you tend to overheat. But, you know, sometimes there is an advantage, especially during the pomp and circumstance before the race starts. But, you know, I guess it just comes down to a matter of personal preference.
I always felt a little bit fitter when I took the leg warmers off, and I was fresh. I was able to kind of, you take the leg warmers off and you almost kind of feel like it's summer, like you're ready to race, you know?
Yeah.
But a good exchange there by the Cutters. You see Kevin DePass getting off the bike for them. There's a Beta Theta Pi exchange, last pit on the front stretch. The Sigma Chi exchange there in red. Acacia grouping back together. A lot of the teams continue to do exchanges at similar points in the race, and that kind of helps with consistency. They're queuing a little bit, probably off of our 5-time defending champion, the Cutters.
Cutters right there in the yellow. Tim Nixon back on the bike.
Well, and the teams that are on the lead lap, you know, the main contenders are really going to start to pay attention to each other and key off of each other and time their exchanges so that they're happening at more or less the same time.
And I am impressed with the way Steven Sharp rides for Phi Delta Theta. We've seen him ride this race a couple years in a row. I knew he was riding well when he missing out this spring, but he just looks really comfortable on the bike. He's not pushing the pace right now, but when I do see him turn it over, he's got a great rhythm and a great kind of flat back form to the way he rides the bicycle. I can tell he's got some pop, and he's ready to he's obviously thinking about a sprint finish today.
Yeah, they definitely get some bonus points for color coordination.
Sigma Chi coming right at you in the red. Adam Fish on the bike, Sigma Chi, lap 60 of 200.
And Sigma Chi, you know, a team that also knows the podium. They last won the race in 1994. So it's been a while for that fraternity, but a team that knows success.
Sigma Chi is one of today's dark horses and look to build on a third-place finish last year. Visited with seniors Adam Fish, Andrew Morrow, before their last race as members of Sigma Chi.
Riding the wave of a third-place finish in last year's race, the men of Sigma Chi are poised to restore their house to former glory.
The fraternity was started in 1855. Chapter started here in 1858. We're the longest standing chapter on IU's campus. We've never been off.
We won the race in '94, and then just some of that energy kind of fizzled out in the 2000s. When we became involved in freshmen, we really were in a rebuilding phase for the bike program.
We had 2 seniors last year who just graduated who we kind of grew up in the sport with. It was fun to progress because we got to learn about the sport and we did better and we were able to compete.
One of the cool things about Little 500 is it is a great tradition and there is a lot of continuity. And the teams that are good are the teams that are able to, you know, take that knowledge that they've learned and pass it on from year to year and generation to generation.
It's no surprise that Indiana University has one of the richest athletic traditions in the nation. For former high school athletes not competing on the Division I level, the Little 500 is the perfect outlet to continue with the spirit of competition.
I think the Little 500 in general is just a really great stage if you're a competitive person to kind of test yourself and see what you're capable of. And you know, there's a lot of people that do play sports in high school and they go to college not intending to play a varsity sport, and then they get into Little 500. So I think, you know, for competitive people that want to have that team aspect, it really is just an incredible day to go out there, and you know, so much work goes into race day, and to see that all come alive in one moment is pretty incredible.
As Sigma Chi looks to upset the Cutters, their mission is simple.
Game plan for this year is definitely to win the race, and we respect the Cutters and the fact that they've won 5 straight, but at the same time, we're not afraid to race against them.
This year we want to control our own luck, and we're looking to be proactive, aggressive, rather than reactive with the race. We want to set the tone for the race.
Well, I've got some movement out there on the track and trying to watch. We know the team's on the lead lap. Fiji really putting the pedal down right now, Jason, trying to make up that lap and get in with the lead group.
Right, we've got an extremely slow pace right now. We've had a number of yellows and they're riding 41, 42-second laps, which is really slow. So a team like Fiji, who's a couple laps down, we'll verify how many laps down, they're trying to make up some time right now. So Fiji, you know, looking to do a little acceleration. They're off the front. As you see the pack 6 or 7 wide, which goes with that slower pace. And that's a little bit of what I expected this year. I thought it might be a slower race. You have a great rider like Eric Young that leaves, and you have a defending champion that's more of a balanced team this year like the Cutters. It's a much slower pace, and the hard thing about that with 8 or 9 teams, there's 8 teams on the lead lap right now, it's more of kind of roll the dice in a field sprint. And in 1999, we saw Sigma Phi Epsilon with an upset victory, and I predicted it early. You know, you could see one of these teams like Acacia or Sigma Chi, you know, sneak up in there for a W.
Yeah, you know, we're 64 laps into the race, not quite at the halfway point. 8 teams on the lead lap. The front group is together. No one's really interested in making the race yet. We're kind of at this a little bit of a lull. Expect to see some action in the next 10 laps.
All right, let's go downstairs to Pam Lobig, who in addition to being with us on air today was the winning coach for the women's race last night. Pam?
I'm here with Jim Kirkham, basically the godfather of the Cutters. So Jim, the past couple of years you've had bad luck and caught in wrecks, but you're always able to claw back. Does this change now when you're doing the rest of the race?
Well, we did get in an unfortunate accident quite early, and the guys had to work really hard to close the gap and get back on. Mentally, we're a little shaken. Physically, we're really tired. So, but we made it back. So we had to burn all of our matches right away. So we're back in the race. We're going to do some longer sets, kind of try to rest a little bit and be reactive, and then see where it gets us towards late in the race.
Hopefully it just served as a good warm-up for the Cutters.
Thank you, Pam. Well, interesting comment right there from the coach, and I guess I would question why, if I'm anybody other than the Cutters right now, where I would go to such a slow pace to allow them to get the rest that they want.
That's right, because this is good for the Cutters right now. They're able to just sit in and recover. I'm actually surprised to see him, you know, further back than second right now, but you know, I think this is just a good opportunity for the Cutters to really just relax, take control of the race, watch and see what other teams are doing. Everybody's kind of looking at each other, trying to size each other up.
Well, to your point, Dylan, they didn't stay back in that third or fourth position very long. They got right back out in the front where you can't get caught up in any of the wash.
Well, that's right, because especially since we only have 8 riders here in this group that are on the lead lap, so everybody else is basically just traffic that's, you know, been scooped up by the front group, which is not always a great situation because they, you know, kind of get in the way. Sometimes, you know, they're not paying attention or they're doing exchanges in a weird way. And so it's that kind of traffic that's just going to cause problems.
And there's something to be said for knowing how to win. After 5 years, these kids have only seen one team win. I think they lack maybe a little bit of a confidence and kind of the aggressiveness that they need right now to take advantage of the Cutters being tired. Although you don't see that right now from Phi Delta Theta. They're stringing it out, bringing it in for an exchange. You're going to see a Phi Delta Theta exchange, Delta Tau Delta queuing off of that.
Sharp going to hand it off to Gardner.
Good exchange there for the Phi Delts. And you're going to see the Delts come in on the backstretch now. Another really strong team. On the backstretch, you can see Sigma Chi trying to close the gap, not really allowing them to get much of a gap. And the Black Key Bulls rider glued to his wheel right there.
Yeah, it looks like Black Key Bulls also going to do an exchange on this lap.
Stephen Miss going to drift to the outside and make the exchange for Black Key Bulls.
Lots of communication needed there when you have 3 exchanges lined up on the front stretch. And Dylan talked about it earlier, but the front stretch typically has better teams where they can pull something like that off. With Cutters and Delta Tau Delta on the back stretch, those teams qual farther behind, and it's harder to do maybe those three abreast exchanges.
Let's go downstairs and visit with Hans Arneson.
I'm here with the pole sitters team, Beta Theta Pi, and their coach, John Grant. John, you guys have been riding a great race. How did you like the start there? I mean, did you guys burn too many matches with Cutters were down?
No, definitely not. You know, we were racing up front. We avoided the early wrecks and just racing smart. You want to be up there and you want to add to the pace, but right, you don't want to, like you said, burn too many matches.
Well, you guys have a really balanced team, and I saw that all 4 of your riders at some point in their Little 5 careers have placed in the top 10 of ITT, so you're very balanced. But you also have a great sprinter this year, and he's a rookie. Are you willing to wait till the end and roll the dice with your rookie sprinter?
Well, we're going to see how it goes. You got to take this lap, 50 laps, this race 50 laps at a time. So, you know, first off, we got to get there. There's a lot of talent spread around the whole track. So, you know, coming down to an actual final sprint, there's a couple teams that might look a little bit better in that situation. So, you know, we're probably going to look to push it and do a few things before it comes down to that.
All right. I look forward to it. Good luck, John.
Thank you, Hans.
Well, John Grant certainly knows how to win the race. He won the race in 2003 for Gafambi when his fraternity Beta Theta Pi was kicked off campus. Beta Theta Pi is back today, and as our pole sitter, really kind of contending to get back there at that podium spot.
You know, Hans mentioned that Beta Theta Pi had a deep team because they all qualified well in the individual time trials. It's one of the events leading up to today that actually helped set the grid for the teams. The riders come out here for the individual time trial event, and they each race by themselves against the clock.
Right, 4 laps, Dylan. They start in each corner, and it's a pretty exciting event. It normally happens at night, and they try to pair the best riders up against each other. Somebody holds the bike, and you start from a standstill, and then it's 4 laps as fast as you can go.
Yeah, that's right. It's very similar to the event that they have on the track or the velodrome for the World Championships, the World Cup, and of course the Olympics. It's called the individual pursuit. 2 riders, each starting on the opposite side of the track, trying to catch each other within 4 kilometers. So it's a very similar event. Great to see that tradition being adopted here in the Little 500 way. Of course, putting 4 riders against each other in each corner, making it that much more exciting. But again, it just shows you how much these riders put into qualifying themselves, qualifying the teams, and preparing for today.
Yeah, and it's a good indication of strength as well. It's a good time you see Delta Tau Delta on the front. RJ Stewart was this year's winner of the individual time trials with a time of 2:18. So he can certainly fly, and all that training that they put in, time on the rollers, has paid off. It's a little bit different when you're time trialing on the track. You're not using aero bars or anything like that, right? You're just down in the drops, and with that single gear, there's only one gear to turn.
Yeah, I used to say that the individual pursuit, because it's a relatively short event, it's around 4 minutes in duration. It's kind of like, I called it the controlled panic, because you need to panic out of the start.
Very nice.
But you have to control it. Otherwise, you just burn yourself up and completely die on the last lap or the last couple of laps. So it's a little bit of finesse. You actually have to control that effort, which is very similar to what we saw the cutters do when they were caught up in that crash and they had to regain contact with the field. They needed to control that effort. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to make it back up.
Tim Nixon pushing the pace for the cutters as they'll look to do an exchange.
Good gap there by Tim, as you see Sam Harbison in the pit picking it up.
Yeah, it's really a textbook exchange by the cutters. Putting in Tim right at the back of the main bunch. He's just got to pedal.
And the 4 sporting the yellow jerseys today for the cutters, who have won 5 straight little 500s, 12 overall, trying to do 6 straight little 5s. Figure that there's going to be people who graduate from IU here in a couple weeks who, if they don't defeat the cutters, somebody doesn't defeat the cutters today, will have known nothing during their entire IU career other than cutters being victorious in the little 5.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow for the fraternities, which once dominated the race. And then you see a couple of our perennial favorites back in there trying to fill the upset position.
Well, with 33 teams separated by just 11 seconds in qualifying, you know, I'm with you, Jason. I really get the feeling that this is anybody's race, and I'm not sure we could say that the last couple of years with Eric Young being able to be in there with the sprint. But I think this year with this group of riders, I'm not going to be shocked if somebody comes like an Acacia you mentioned earlier, comes out of the back of the pack and wins the race today.
Right, all right. There's a lot of opportunity, and we saw Hans down there with John Grant. They have a rookie sprinter, William Craigie, and something like that is just an entire wild card. He'll be on the bike, and he's never even competed in the Little 5 before, let alone finished it. You just don't know what could happen. So I see somebody like William Craigie who may go early and shake up the field. But Phi Delta Theta really has the best sprinter in the pack. So if it is a pack finish, you know, you think of Phi Delta Theta as one of our favorites. Cutters certainly is more of a strong team this year, as opposed to having a very strong sprinter like Eric Young.
But if we're down to 1, you like Sharp?
Sharp one missing out, and Cutters didn't have anyone in the finals and missing out. So it's kind of hard for me to see it play out like that. I think Cutters need to ride more of an aggressive race today and make something happen. And it's just right now it's kind of a balance where they're eating up laps and they're recovering. And so you kind of maybe look for the Cutters to be more aggressive towards the end of the race, maybe between lap 150 and 200.
Certainly a lot of the fun, the strategy involved on how you want to attack the race from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah, you know, Jason, you mentioned another one of the qualifying events leading up to today, the Missing Out, which is generally a good event to show who's a good sprinter. Walk us through how the format of that race plays out.
Well, there's multiple rounds, and what you have is you have a number of riders on the track at one time, and each lap around the last rider across gets pulled. And it's very similar to track racing when we used to race on the velodrome. And what you do is you end up with a champion. And so in the finals, they start at something like 8, they dwindle down to 3, and then they do a neutral lap, and then it's a sprint for a finish. So it's really exciting. It's actually a very fun race to compete in and watch. I was second in that, never able to cross the finish line first and Missing Out, but a fun race nonetheless. And sprinters are just kind of a different makeup than time trialists, right? You know, sprinters, you see bigger guys with fast twitch muscles, and time trialists are usually the endurance athletes that maybe have come from a speed skating background or Nordic skiing or swimming.
That's right. Well, and really, like, you know, in building a team, a potential race-winning team, you want to have a good balance of riders that can take the long sets, close the gaps, maybe put pressure on the other teams, and then also potentially have somebody in the pocket that can really come out on that last lap and win the race.
Yeah, for sure, and a great strategy. You know, Dylan, I mean, you've sprinted on a lot of single-speed bikes. There's no future gear you can look towards, so you've got to somehow get your cadence up, you know, well over 100, 120 RPMs per minute, and they do that. A lot of these teams do that by motor pacing out there on the roads, trying to get up to, you know, 30, 35, 40 miles per hour. And that's one of the strategies they use for becoming a sprinter.
Yeah, that's right. And we saw some of the teams actually using rollers and various, you know, different types of training techniques to really make that spin of that 46-18 gear efficient, because it's the only gear they have.
And if you get a look at the bikes, another thing the sprinters need to do is you've got to move up in the saddle. So when you're climbing, you tend to sit back in the saddle where you have some leverage, but when you're sprinting on these single-speed bikes, there's really no place to be other than up in the saddle. You can see a little bit of saddle showing there on the Cutters rider that's on the lead, right? You're just kind of up in the saddle, you're turning it over.
Yeah, that's right. You know, the other thing it's interesting that it's difficult to see, but the track is actually banked in the corners by a couple of degrees.
And that's something new that's in this track in Bill Armstrong Stadium, where we've been racing since 1981. At the old stadium on the 10th Street track, there wasn't a bank, and there was actually a little bit of a curb, and it was longer straightaways, shorter turns. So the older guys talk about how hard it was to race on that old 10th Street track, and Bill Armstrong Stadium advancing it with a little bit of banking and wider turns.
Great exchange by Phi Delta Theta there. His teammate really doing a great job of putting him right in at the back of the front group. Doesn't need to do any extra effort to maintain contact in that lead group.
Havel can get out there and reestablish their position. Nice ride by Gartner again.
They're a great team there, Phi Delta Theta, coached by Brian Drummond. You see Alan Smith, their mechanic, down there in the pits. They're certainly hungry today. I know that they want this. Blackheath Bulls and Sigma Chi, there was some exchanges.
Those two have put together a nice race so far too, less than halfway through it.
Yeah, no question. You know, Blackheath Bulls has ridden a number of great races, no victories to date, but certainly right in a position to win today.
7th year of existence for the Blackheath Bulls. Top 10 every year, 3rd in 2007, but no Born-Horner trophy with their name on it.
They're looking for a top spot. They're coached by the Choinaki brothers, who have started a team here at Indiana University and kept the tradition alive. There you see our pole sitters.
For an injury update, we'll go downstairs to Hans Arneson.
I was just talking to Steve Zimba, Sean Zimba's older brother. He's here in the infield. We got an update about Sean, which is fortunately he's okay. He's back in the pit. He's off the stretcher. They think it's a mild concussion, possible break in his wrist, but he didn't break his collarbone, and he looks to be all right. So that's good news for those guys, but he's out of the race for today.
That is good news, Hans. Thank you for the update.
Cutters again riding on the pole.
Yeah, Phi Delta Theta sitting right there. Sigma Chi, one of our stylish teams. You know, we saw a lot of that with the women last night. Sigma Chi with the socks high.
High socks.
You know, there's nothing wrong with standing out in the pack, you know, and that comes into play with these jersey colors, too. You can see Acacia's got, I'd call that the Jamaica colors. They're sitting 5 deep.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of retro.
Yeah, so so we know that the Cutters get the yellow jersey because they won last year. Beta Theta Phi has the green jersey because they qualified first. Explain the other jerseys to us, Jason.
Yeah, and Phi Delta Theta is the other. They won the series events, which are missing out individual time trials and team pursuits, so they show up in the white jersey. And what happens is you get to choose your jerseys based on qual positions as you do pits. And the multicolored jerseys are usually down there at the bottom of the bag, and the teams that didn't qualify very well end up with a number of colors, and teams that qualified better get to choose their colors. So you see Fiji choosing purple, and Alpha Tau Omega choosing blue and yellow, but little bit of fun history of the Little 500.
9 exchanges occurring. We've scored 90 laps. We're on the 91st lap now.
Working our way toward the midpoint of the race. 200 laps. Completes the race. The men's Little 500.
And we're just at 1 hour in with 90 laps scored, so I'm seeing a little bit of slower race than what we've seen in the years. We've had a lot of yellows and we've had some grouping. We've got 8 teams on the lead lap. Comfortable to knock out some sets. You know, Little 500 is really a race where, you know, each set you ride out there on the track is its own individual race. So with 4 riders deep and individual sets, it's kind of fun to see how each set plays out.
Interesting to hear the coaching perspective of breaking this race down into 50 lap segments.
Right, and we plan out, try to in advance how many laps each rider is going to ride, and you obviously try to rest your sprinters. As you see somebody down on the track, that's team number 23, that's Dodds House.
Diego Rodriguez, the
Yellow
senior
flag's
finance
out.
major, is down, and that brings the yellow flag out, which means everybody has to hold their position as we have the caution flag out.
We've gone past 1 hour. You see the scoreboard, 1 hour, 1 minute plus.
And right there in the back, Rodriguez goes down and gets clipped at the back. Diego being 10-2 right now. We'll take a break here from Armstrong Stadium. 62nd running of the men's Little 500. 8 teams on the lead lap. Still better than 100 laps to go.
In 6th, Devin Van Delta, Team 10. In 7th, Team 3, Black Key Bulls. In 8th, Team number 1, Meditative High. 9th, only 2 seconds.
Second running of the men's Little 500 on HDNet. We'll be back in a moment.
You have cyclists who come from cycling backgrounds. You have people who come from other sports backgrounds and other people who have just heard about the Little 500 and want to participate.
I think it's a pretty rare thing where you get, 20 to 30,000 people to show up for a bike race, intramural bike race, let alone.
I think it is just such a display of character and dedication and enthusiasm, and I'm pretty sure that no one else can match up.
Back inside Armstrong Stadium, Rich Cellini, Dylan Casey, Jason Sonnenborn, a 4-time rider. Jason, in this event, do you agree with those sentiments of the young men and women you heard right there about their experience in the Little 5?
Well, it's something that's really a life-changing event. I mean, not only are you working together with the members on your team, but there's things like the Riders Council where the senior riders are kind of helping out the more junior riders, and you decide how this race is presented and how it's formed, and so it really forms just leadership opportunities for these young men and women for years to come.
Black Key Bulls, they do another exchange, and another clean one as they get Miss back on the bike for Black Key Bulls.
And Cutters are coming in for an exchange down the back stretch. They've got a good gap. Good exchange there by the Cutters. A bike exchange with a good bird. Thomas Walsh getting on the bike for them.
That being announced from the 99th lap. Now have 10 laps in which to serve the penalty.
So Cutters riding a really comfortable race right now. They're going to get back together with the group.
We want to welcome in a special guest who is called in, Lance Armstrong, on the phone with us. We have your former teammate from the United States Postal Service team up here, Lance. Dylan Casey, and I'll start with the first question for you there, partner. I think one of the things that would excite you about this Little 500 race is that we've got a lot of people out here riding bikes, a great crowd, and from all the vignettes we've watched from the riders in here, Lance, we've got people who are going to ride bicycles for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I was fortunate enough to come to that event about 15 years ago, and it was pretty eye-opening for me to see the level of competition and see the the passion of the students and the
Really unheard of. It is the premier cycling event in all of collegiate sports, and you come out here and you see so many big-time sports in America, but nothing has anything on the tradition and passion here of the Little 500 in Bloomington.
Hey, Lance, it's Dylan here. We're about halfway through the race. A lot of action so far. Cutters is really controlling the race. Of course, they're my favorite. Big question, who do you like for today?
I have no clue, but you know, the Cutters obviously have quite the tradition there, all the way going back to the movie, and then even the year that I was there 15 years ago, and in the spring of '97, they also won. So, you know, they got a lot to live up to, and but it's you know, at least based on my experience of watching the race there, anything can happen. There can be flow exchanges, there can be mechanicals, there can be crashes, so you know, it's anybody's race until the end.
And we've had a little bit of all of that today. What keeps you busy now, Lance?
No, I don't ever do anything. I just lay around and watch TV.
Come on. Come on now, you can't hide. We have inside information from Dylan up here, so if you don't tell us what we're doing, we're just going to report it.
Well, that wouldn't be the first time somebody just reported something without knowing.
Yeah, so what are you doing out there now, Lance?
Well, I'm actually, you caught me at a good time. I'm out here in the middle of a training ride, and I'm just, Dylan, as you can appreciate, I'm out here messing with my cleats on my shoes, and so I'm talking to you guys, and Dave Bolts is adjusting my cleats, and here in about 2 seconds, I'm going to get back on the bike and go back to work.
That's great. Well, one last thing for you, Lance. I heard that if somehow you and I managed to get admitted to the University of Indiana here in Bloomington, looks like you and I could start our own little 5 team. What do you say we give it a shot?
Oh, I'm down. I'm totally down. I got a lot of history with that state. If it wasn't for that great university and the doctors and nurses there, I wouldn't be alive today. So I would be ecstatic to come back and be associated in any way.
Well, we certainly thank you for your time and taking the time out. We wish you well in your new and exciting endeavors. Get those cleats fixed and get back on that bike.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lance.
45 seconds. Back to
Well, it's not often we have a 7-time winner of the Tour de France stop off and become part of our show.
Well, yeah, you know, Lance didn't really let on, but he's actually seriously training right now. I had the unfortunate experience of spending some time with him last week on the bike. We did about 5.5 hours in the mountains of Santa Cruz. He's getting ready for couple of Ironman triathlons.
I had a little bit of jitterbugs just hearing Lance on the phone. I was trying to think of, you know, how he would spin this 46-18 gear out there. I mean, you know, certainly he'd spin it really quickly and dominate, but it'd just be something new for him. You know, now he's training for triathlons, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he really is spending a lot of time both on the bike, swimming, spending a lot of time on the run. But I think it's great. I mean, you know, of course, from my perspective, I've always been inspired by what Lance does on the bike, but also what he does off the bike and the dedication and passion that he has for helping cancer survivors and families and people that are impacted by cancer, and the effort that he puts into Livestrong is just really amazing and inspiring. It's great to see him put so much effort into that now, especially as he pursues more sporting dominance in the sport of triathlons.
Yeah, and you know, the other neat part is that he's just so into being active and living, you know, a healthy, balanced lifestyle. And whatever it is you want to do, I'm certainly love it if you're out there on a bike, but whatever it is to get out and get active, he's certainly completely in favor of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's kind of a good parallel, you know, somebody that's a tremendous athlete, an event like Little 500.
Oh, we just had another big crash.
Yep, and they're still piling up just past turn 3.
Okay, Beta Theta Pi, Delta Tau Delta have escaped that. Phi Delta have escaped that. Theta Chi, the Cutters. But who's caught up in it?
It looks like Acacia maybe got caught up.
Acacia's caught up.
And now here they go, and they'll have to pass it off, and Acacia will be able to get back on the bike, but they're going to have to hold their position right now as we're under yellow.
I tell you, that is really coming through turn 3 into turn 4. They've had problems with turn 3 all spring, from what I understand. You just got a huge pile up, and Acacia was a team that really kind of caused it. Kind of just looked like sliding out a little bit. We've got drier weather today, which causes for looser cinders. It just looked like you had a little bit of a slide out there by the Acacia rider.
What is it about turn 3?
You know, I don't know, but historically, you know, drainage is kind of one thing that goes on. When the track doesn't drain well, it kind of ruts form on the track. And you know, I haven't been here all spring, and I haven't ridden since 2001, but the riders tell me that turn 3 has been a problem spot all spring.
Staff attending to some of the injured riders. That was SAE rider, Sigma Alpha Epsilon. Still under yellow flag.
So a lot of our teams escaped there. You saw Sigma Chi a little bit back. Acacia's, they're going to face about a 3/4 of a lap deficit when this comes back to green.
And they're back to green.
We're back to racing.
Seems like it's just so many factors can go into things that end up with some of our accidents. While we have a moment, let's go downstairs and visit with Pam.
Yeah, so a team we haven't talked about at all is Theta Chi, and they're still up there with the leaders. Kind of an unknown, a dark horse. They've got a couple years of race experience, 2 seniors. So keep an eye on them, see what they're going to do. They've got a good coach in Chuck Taylor, who has coached for many years, lives in Bloomington, knows a lot about the race.
Could those be one of the dark horses, Jason, that, you know, we've referenced so many of them and talked about them that we really feel that this could be anybody's race here this afternoon.
Yeah, with this kind of race, I think it's going to be a really fun finish. You know, Theta Chi's been around for a long time, and a race like this favors a team like Theta Chi. It really kind of hurts, I think, you know, teams like Sigma Chi who look for more of a time trial. I think the cutters need to be more aggressive once they get their energy back after chasing early. And I don't think it favors Delta Tau Delta that much. You know, RJ Stewart's certainly got some pop, and it's just a question of whether he can finish it off. But, you know, a team like Theta Chi could sneak right in there and win this thing. Right, and the pace is super slow right now, and you just haven't seen them even drop Acacia, who's making up a little bit of ground right now, and they're 3 or 4 wide. So a lot of teams just kind of looking around, seeing what's going to happen, not trying to play their cards too soon.
Brian Haweniak on the bike for Acacia. And he's going to put his head down and try to make up some of that distance. And Thomas Walsh going to put it down for the cutters. As their drop-off point is around turn 3, but Black Key Bull's going to give chase and not let the cutters escape. And the Black Key Bull's going to put a push on and come around for an exchange. Here's Hans Arneson.
I'm not sure if you guys heard that just then, but I think I heard over the race speakers here from Chuck Crabb that Sigma Chi was assessed. There they go. They're going to the penalty box right now. They have a 10-second penalty to serve. That's huge. 10 seconds. The rider has to be stopped. They were caught for creeping on the yellow flag there. 10 seconds is an eternity. That's a 1/4 of a lap. There they go.
Right, you see that Hans, it was almost a half lap by the time he really got moving. That is a big time penalty for Sigma Chi.
Now that type of penalty will certainly capture everybody's attention when the yellow flag is out to maintain position.
You see them looking to close the gap. You know, you've got to kind of get into that time trial mode and look for bridging the gap, but also doing some exchanges, so it's a balance. Maybe 3 to 4 lap sets for Sigma Chi trying to close this down, and they've done a good job. They got that half lap down to a 1/4 lap here, And this is what's great about their pit. Their pit is right next to the penalty box. So what you saw happen was they were able to get a fresh rider into the penalty box and onto the bike, similar to an exchange, really quickly. So the rider's completely fresh for Sigma Chi right now, and he's doing a good job of closing it down.
Delta Theta and Steve Sharp in the lead, followed by the Cutters and Delta Tau Delta. 116 of 200.
See Timothy Nixon on the bike there for the Cutters, a Bloomington, Indiana native, with the head bob a little bit to the right. Reminds me of Jay Paulsgrove, two-time champion for the Cutters.
While we have a moment, let's visit in with some of the people who make this whole race move forward. They're responsible for keeping order for the chaos of 33 hard-riding teams. Mike Howard runs a tight ship. We walk the track with the man himself before today's race.
Much like the Indianapolis 500, race stewards of the Little Five fly below the radar, making sure the races run fairly and, most importantly, safely. For the past 37 years, Mike Howard has been chief of them all.
What you're looking at now is turn 3 and 4, which is at the west end of the stadium. The track is cinders. They put water and chemicals and try to bind it down as tight as possible, but it's loose on top. And so when the riders on race day come down this backstretch at full speed and go into the turn, they don't slow down very much.
Oh, and there was a crash at the back of the field. Sometimes riders just overlap.
One of the things that we are looking at this part of the track, we have our assistant stewards in the tower, and we have judges through the turn, and they're watching to make sure not only if there's an accident to put out the yellow flag.
Yep, and there goes the yellow.
But did somebody do something that they should not have done that caused that accident, which causes a penalty against them?
Some of the bumping and another little mishap.
Behind us right now is turn 4. This is a very busy place race day because as teams come out of turn 4, most of the good teams are going into their pits to do exchanges every 10, 15, 20 laps. When they do these exchanges, they're cutting to the outside. That creates a lot of opportunities for crossing wheels and accidents if they don't pay attention. Qualification day, we have judges here to make sure the teams complete their exchange in the very precise area. If they don't, it's a foul, and they have 3 opportunities to qualify for the race today. This is a very busy place race day. Everything has to be set back for safety purposes, and that's about the tour of the interesting places on the track.
Stewards have been busy throughout today's race.
Yeah, we've seen lots of accidents, and you see Jordan Bailey, our race director, up there right now with Mike Howard, taking a look at what's going on. That might be Jonathan Purvis to his left, a potential future chief steward. But we've got these towers in each one of the corners. Obviously, there's so much happening in the Little 500, so much organization. You need these stewards to keep track of what's going on out there and keep the race safe.
A student-run event, intramural event, it doesn't feel like either of those. It really doesn't. I mean, it's an amazing event for really who puts all the muscle behind it, and as well run as it is. I mean, you just don't think of it as some type of student/intramural event.
Right, you really feel kind of like a superstar even being able to ride in something like this, and to think there's really no entry fee. It's just something that you can do as a student at Indiana University. It's a tremendous opportunity. And from what I understand, Rich, I've never been on the officials' headsets, but they're each mic'd up, and they wear headsets so they can hear what's going on at all times, and they have tremendous control of what's going on during this race within this quarter-mile track here at Bill Armstrong Stadium.
Well, here's the last exchange, and
yeah, you know, the Sigma Nu rider had some choice words for his colleagues.
At Sigma Chi, they weren't, I don't think they were exchanging greetings for a beverage later.
Yeah.
Happy to be moving along. You know, you saw somersaults down there and all kinds of, it's definitely a cycling race, but there's a lot of other things that happen.
Does anything that you see during the course of a little 500 race surprise you? It's always, I'll put it this way, it's always amazing to me, but it's never surprising because you just never know what to expect.
No, you really don't know what's gonna happen. Something you always expect is the big crowd and the great pageantry, but with what happens in there in that quarter-mile track, you're always surprised.
Grant Powell, Black Key Bulls, leading the pack.
And a good crowd today, as you can see. You know, it's not warm weather here in Bloomington, Indiana. I think we're down, you know, around 60 degrees or so, but you've seen so many students and fans come out today to support their teams. Cutters get a lot of support from the locals, including one of their sponsors, the Bakehouse in downtown Bloomington, where they actually eat for free throughout the year. And we've got a big grouping in the pack right now. You've got some teams that are a lap down, but you've got a lot of riders on the lead lap. And this slow pace allows for this big peloton to form.
The majority of teams in that pack.
Yeah, I'm really surprised to see the race playing out this way. We really haven't seen any of the teams try to take control and really lay down some fast laps. It's mostly just riding around, teams doing their exchanges, Cutters mostly trying to stay out of trouble. Sigma Chi really paying attention, Phi Delta Theta also on the front all day. 125 laps in, 75 laps to go. Been racing for about an hour and 23 minutes. Not one of the fastest races we've seen before.
And everybody seemingly comfortable with the idea of staying with the pack. And if you go back to last night in the women's race, you know, you had 5 and 6 teams right in there jockeying for position. I think as that race started to wind down, all of those teams were happy, seemingly, to be in that position because nobody tried to push with 10, 8, 6 laps to go. They were all happy to let it come down to a sprint at the end.
Well, in fact, when Delta Gamma had a gap with 5 laps to go, it was Pam, their coach, who told, slow down, let's wait for the last lap. Let's not try to win it this way. She had confidence in her sprinter, and it really paid off.
Casey Dukes with the big sprint last night for DGs to capture the 25th running of the women's little 500 under the lights. Under the lights and in the rain would be the correct description of last night.
You know, Acacia's still really, you know, almost more than a half a lap down, really suffering as a result of that mishap. And it's just unfortunate to see a team that didn't qualify that well, but really put on a great display of racing today, and then unfortunately suffer from that mishap.
You know, we'll see if Acacia can get back into the lead peloton of riders. 128 laps in the books here at the little 500. We'll step aside and come back to Armstrong Stadium. More racing coming up on HDNet.
I'd say my favorite memory, without a doubt, would be qualifications my sophomore year. The previous year we had qualified 33rd, so we didn't really have any expectations, and a team of all rookies. We had 3 sophomores and a freshman, and were able to go out there and kind of shock the world a little bit.
Everything clicked that one day, and everyone just kind of picked each other up, and, you know, we fought through adversity. So just that feeling of, you know, finishing 5th and something that we didn't really think was possible was definitely a memorable moment and something I'll take with me for the rest of my life.
Little 500, part of the world's greatest college weekend. Jason Sonnenborn, does this look like familiar ground to you?
Yeah, it is. It's Kirkwood Avenue here in Bloomington. A very fun place to be. Dylan and I were downtown scouting a little bit last night at Nick's. And
we call you the mayor, and that's just not made up for no reason. There's no piece of this little 500 that you don't cover.
Yeah, and there's certainly a good reason to go to Nick's, and it's to see some of the alumni we all went to school with. But Yeah, a great little part of Bloomington.
Well, it's also a great time to hear all the, rumors and who's doing what, who's riding well, and who do we think is going to win. It's a good chance to get some good dirt on what's happening before and after the race.
Sun's peeked its head out of the clouds momentarily. Well, I don't want to say you're down there wasting time, Mr. Mayor. I say you're down there doing research and homework, and I'm glad you brought Dylan with you.
And I guess part of the race prep, I'm thinking a little bit about Phi Delta Theta now, and we've seen some accelerations in the group since we went on to break. Black Key Bulls right there stringing it out, and Phi Delta Theta on their hip. But with Phi Delta Theta in 1996, they won the race, and they started to win in the about lap 182. And what they did at that time was they did 3 to 4 lap sets really hard. And one of their coaches, Joel McKay, rode on that 1996 team. And I wonder in the back of my mind if you'll start to see some aggressive racing start to happen here soon. We're at 134 laps scored, and the pace has started to pick up. Now with kind of Cutters pulling through, super aggressive on the inside. It's Kevin DePass right there, just giving it his all, digging deep.
DePass trying to make the Phi Delts pay for the exchange.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, he's queuing off the Phi Delts and just trying to get as big of an exchange as he can get. He is at about 200 meters right now.
Cutter's going to pass it off. Harbison will hop on the seat.
Great set there by Kevin DePass. If anything, guys, that's a confidence builder. If you're able to get gaps like that all day long, going into the last 20 laps, which really count, it's all on the line. You're able to get that gap, or you're able to sprint against the other teams.
Yeah, that's right. Phi Delts getting ready to do an exchange, it looks like, on the next lap. Cutter's keying off of that, which actually makes it even more difficult for Phi Delts when they're going to do their exchange, because the pace, he's not going to have the gap that he wanted to do the exchange.
And there's nobody out in the Phi Delt pit right now, so I think it was just an acceleration. That's a fresh rider on the bike for Phi Delts. Looks like Sven Gardner for Phi Delts and Sam Harbison for the Cutters. Sigma Chi tucked in there. So Phi Delts just trying to turn it over a little bit, right? Trying to show a little bit of that aggressive racing.
Well, that's good. Really, the other teams have got to make the Cutters work hard. This is the Cutters' race to lose. It's the other teams that have to make the race.
Joe Greenlee on the bike for Sigma Chi.
And that was part of the conversation last night as well. I heard it from Matt Burns and Dan Burns, former Sigma Alpha Epsilon riders. The fraternities are not happy with the Cutters' dominance in the race. And they had a number of things that they wanted me to say today. Some of them I can, some of them I can't, but there's a lot of animosity towards the independent team, the Cutters, and the fraternities are ready to take this back.
Well, and it's not too surprising to imagine that the fraternities potentially collaborating together against the Cutters. Potentially, of course, that collaboration no longer exists on the last lap.
Of course.
But if there's anything that they can do collectively to put Cutters in the defensive position at this point in the race.
Well, the Cutters, once again, they've won 5 straight. They were in another crash here at the start of this race this afternoon, yet still hanging right in there. And, nobody's setting a pace or really looking to do much of anything right now to make the Cutters uncomfortable.
No, Beta Theta Pi coming in to do an exchange. Cutters sitting comfortably at the front again.
Back to Hans Arneson.
I'm in the pit with Sigma Chi student coach Sam Small. Sam, you guys recovered great from that penalty. Who was it that shut down the gap for you?
Drew Morrow. It's a 10-second penalty. He was able to bridge that gap pretty quickly. So,
Drew the Diesel Morrow?
Oh yeah. That's what we like to call him around here. So,
you have 2 strong veterans, and you also have 2 rookies. How are your rookies doing for you today?
Rookies are doing great. I mean, they're eating up a lot of laps for us, letting the sprinters stay off their legs. So, they're doing well.
I've heard that your 2 veteran riders might be the most dynamic 1-2 punch in the race right now and have a lot of experience. Do you think they're going to have enough to outsmart the rest of the guys on the track?
Oh yeah, I mean, with our rookies taking those laps up for them, the guy like Fish, you can sprint, take out the whole field, and the guy like Morrow that can just literally TT for however long he wants. I think we're doing good. So.
Sounds good. Good luck.
Thank you, Hans.
And the pace is picking up here a little bit. You've got Black Key Bulls and Theta Chi chasing. And you've got a kind of a long string there of a pack, and Phi Delta Theta on the front. Delta Tau Delta, I see them ride a lot like the old Team Major Taylor coaches. They have consistent coaching. Courtney Bishop came from Team Major Taylor, and they're really sitting second a lot of the time, which I see them not pulling through, which causes kind of for a slow pack, because if the second guy pulls through like the Cutters rider's doing right there, the pace picks up and teams start to fall off. You see the Cutters really throwing it down, and Beta Theta Pi right on their wheel marking them, but will Beta Theta Pi pull through? You don't quite see that kind of.
Matt Green on the bike for Beta Theta Pi, and they don't pull through.
Right, so again, they're kind of comfortable backing it off a little bit and queuing off the Cutters. And in order to make this race strong, what you've got to do is you've got to, if you're going to drop a couple of these teams, we've got 7 on the lead lap right now, you've got to be willing to be aggressive and put your nose in the wind.
So 17. What's the right time to do that?
It really depends, but if you're smart, a lot of times, Rich, you see the teams kind of wait towards the end of the race. But there's no perfect time. And here we are in lap 142 in, and they're starting to get a little bit antsy. We've seen the pace pick up a little bit. We were at 1 hour and 7 minutes, 100 laps in, which leads us to a 2:14 pace, somewhat of a slower pace for the men this year.
Well, you got to hand to Sigma Chi serving their 10-second penalty and getting back in the race.
Oh, that's a good point, Dylan. That's huge. And what they did was they went to, I hear they have a 1-2 punch with Fish and Moreau, and they went to Moreau on the long time trial to kind of bring it back together. And you got to think that Fish would then be their sprinter.
Phi Delta, Sven Gardner.
In a Sigma Chi exchange. Great ride today by Sigma Chi, right? Just kind of pulling it back together and hanging in there with the lead group, looking for their first victory since 1994.
Yeah, with 55 laps to go, you can really feel the energy here in the stadium starting to pump up. The crowd is really getting into the race. You can even sense that the riders are starting to get more focused, thinking about how they're going to wrap up this last lap.
And you need to be doing that right now. We've got a little bit of a wreck on the outside there.
Yeah, and that's an interesting. The outside of the track is probably less compact. So, having that pit in that location, he's actually in the corner as he's getting ready to come in and do his exchange, and he just completely wiped out there. Fortunately, it looks like he's okay. The front wheel just washed out for him.
It's a really hard place to have your pit. It's just hard to, like you said, Dylan, get your gap into the corner and then come out wide like that. They seem just ecstatic to kind of keep moving and be in the race at this point in time. Is that right cycling, Rich?
Yep, Elliot Layden. He's going to have a little cinder work to do.
Doing a great exchange. I mean, he put his teammate basically in front of the group. In fact, he even has a little bit of a gap. It gives him an opportunity to soft pedal a little bit and regain a great position right at the front of that front lead pack.
Yeah, Beta's with it. They're sitting green for a reason, and that means they can probably do exchanges better than most teams. They had a huge qualifications this year. The fastest time we've had since 2007.
Check in with Pam Lobig.
Yeah, I'm in the pit with Delta Tau Delta. I'm talking to a recent alumni, Matt Niebler, that really helped them build this program into what it is. So, Matt, how's the race going for you guys so far?
I think it's going according to plan. Our boys look excellent. RJ looks great. Phil has had excellent burns. Nick and Phil are just really killing it. So I'm really, really pleased.
And so right here in front of us, we have RJ Stewart, who is easily the best rider on the track. Do you think he'll be the finisher for you?
I don't know if we know who's going to be the finisher yet. I think that's the plan. I think he's looking forward to his sprint. He's already said that he's looking forward to it. I think he's the man for the job, and we're really looking forward to seeing him get to do his thing.
Great. So it looks like it's been a pretty big pack so far. And it looks like it's probably going to come to a big pack sprint. Do you like your chances in a pack sprint? Would you rather stretch it out, try and get a gap?
Well, I think, the fewer teams that are there at the end, the better, right? But I really trust RJ's chances. I think that he's got the leg speed, and I know he's got the experience. So if it comes down to that, I think that we'll have it.
So getting towards the end of the race, time to start thinking about end game.
Thank you, Pam.
Look at these guys across the track. It's probably 40 degrees out right now with the wind chill, and these fans are fired up so much that they can hang out in there without a shirt.
They can hang out just wearing paint. That's brave.
Yes. Well, that just shows you how excited and motivated the fans are here for the Little 500.
50 laps to go, so we're to the 4th of the 4 little race segments as the coaches broke this one down.
That's right, we're still eating some laps up right now. Phi Delta Theta coming in for an exchange there on the outside. Something to watch. He's got some traffic to deal with. Oh, knocked him out to the outside a little bit, but you've got to have your head in the game the entire time. But Phi Delta Theta doing a good job of moving around some of that slower traffic there.
Gardner gives it off to Haybill for the Phi Delts.
Sigma Nu just not having a good day today. They have been in the cinders probably more than any other team I've seen out there today.
We're in the cinder scars. Sigma Nu, a fraternity here on North Jordan. Neighbors to Phi Delta Theta who are out there. You know, you can see the Phi Delts turning it up right now, right? You saw the tongue out, showing some panache, laying it down.
Blackie Bulls and Delta Tau not going to let him get away. We've got another mishap just outside of turn 1, 3 riders down.
Oh, and you can see the cinders just ground up against his leg. That's going to hurt in the shower tonight.
None of the 3 on the lead lap.
And no yellow.
And the wheel is just completely tacoed. That's when you say nothing can surprise you out here on the Little 500 track. You're not going to ride that wheel again. That's Team Amalgam.
You know, at this point in the race, the riders are getting tired, losing their concentration a little bit. It's hard to...
Oh, just piling up. And the tacoed wheel, it's quickly bent. They've got to get that replaced.
Now those teams in the back of the pack, so we avoid a yellow flag and the race continues.
You know, it's really interesting to me. I didn't know how Delta would ride. Like I said, Team Major Taylor was a sprint team, and Delta Tau Delta really kind of assimilating with that now with the same coaching. You heard Pam down there interviewing Ryan. He said they are looking forward to a sprint. So a lot of the teams kind of sharing their cards here with HDNet, letting us know what's going to happen.
We've been here for a few years. They trust us, Mayor.
Yeah, they do.
They give us the inside scoop.
No, it's been a tremendous go. This is my 11th year up here in the booth, and with HDNet for, I think, 9. You know, what the company does, you know, under Mark Cuban's leadership is phenomenal, and what we're able to broadcast here is an exceptional show of the Little 500 at Indiana University.
Thomas Walsh now moving to the front for the Cutters. With all the pageantry and hype surrounding the Little 5, hard to believe it's not a professional race. It wouldn't be possible without the tireless efforts put forth by a few handfuls of IU students.
The Indiana University Foundation has been aiding IU students with financial assistance since 1936. And in 1950, 1 year before the first Little 500, a student presence of the foundation was born.
It was really the brainchild of Howdy Wilcox. And at that time, Howdy was the president of the IU Foundation. Of course, the IU Foundation is the fundraising arm of the university. He began to get the impression that students didn't necessarily understand what it was that the foundation did. He formed the Student Foundation and got a lot of students involved, and amazingly, he got the first steering committee going in 1950, and just 1 year later, in 1951, the first race happened.
With all of the makings of a professional sporting event, it is sometimes difficult to remember the Little 500 is and always has been an intramural affair. In fact, everything you see here today is a product of hard work for the students by the students.
It really is a major student organization here, and so the race is student-run, and it's used to raise money for scholarships. It's also a way of teaching philanthropy, that students who participate in this activity really understand the importance of philanthropy, and that carries in once they graduate.
This weekend, the Little 500 and the Student Foundation to this university is such a cornerstone. It means so much, and it kind of carries on the tradition that Indiana has to offer.
Each year we give away around $173,000 to students who are putting themselves through school. You get to actually select who some of these recipients are and see how this scholarship has impacted their life.
So it's a real testament to our kids, I think, to be able to say we pull off the biggest event on campus and it's all done by students.
What a tradition. I think we should set a goal to make sure that we're here broadcasting for the 100th Little 500.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
158 laps. 158 of 200. 62nd running of the Little 500 here at IU. The Cutters are 5-time defending champions. Thomas Walsh trying to stretch it out for the Cutters and make an exchange. Hand the bike off to Tim Nixon.
And you see the Cutter exchange. The Delta Tau Delta rider was ready. Again, Delta Tau Delta marking the Cutters. We'll see if he does another lap and then bring it in.
Yeah, it's a good idea to do that because then they can kind of work together to make contact with the group.
Bill Momber for Delta Tau Delta. Black Key Bulls. Stephen Miss right on his wheel.
Really kind of a good strategy by Delta Tau Delta, because what you've seen is you've seen the pack string out now, and Cutters needs to work through, a really long pack.
And the Black Key Bulls are going to stretch it out, and they'll do an exchange just prior to turn number 1.
The Delt's riding very, very well right now.
You see all these teams doing these exchanges at the same time, and it just causes complete chaos within the front group. Riders all over the track trying to do the exchanges cleanly, not crash, and make contact again with the leaders.
And here with 160 scored, now is the time. Really, you don't see many moves between 160 and 170, but then it starts to heat up between 170 and 200. And the question is, does anyone pull the pin and throw the grenade on the pack and see what happens?
Well, we have 7 teams on the lead lap, all going for the victory right now.
What's the danger of, to use your term, Jason, pulling the pin too soon?
What happens is you show your cards and you allow maybe some other teams to sit on or be able to react to it within the draft and not have to go maximum effort, full throttle right out of the gate. So it's if it doesn't work, did you expend too much energy and allow the other teams just to get a free ride for a while at a high pace?
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes it's not the first move that wins, it's the second move. We call it the counter move that often wins. And it's that first one that sets up the second. And so, the Cutters or maybe Sigma Chi Black Key Bulls, maybe they're actually looking for one of the other teams to try to go first and then really nail it with the counter move.
Right, it is, Dylan, you're exactly right. It is that counter, and you've got to just fully commit to something. And you saw it last night, right? Delta Gamma had a gap, but then it was slow down and wait for the sprint. So the question is, can any of these teams fully commit? And I think, the Cutters have proven in the past couple of years that they can commit to something like that. And it's a question of whether they're able to break it up. And I think the other teams, the fraternities, are really liking their chances sprinting against the Cutters this year.
Yeah.
162 laps scored. We're going to step aside, take our final break, and come back with the conclusion and the finish of the 62nd running of the men's Little 500 from Armstrong Stadium in Bloomington.
The 2012 Little 500 is sponsored by Schwinn, B97, Pizza X, Canary Cycleware, KIS College Bookstore, Blue Line, Coyote Logistics, Office of Women's Affairs, Underground Printing, Lamar Outdoor Advertising, and by Coca-Cola.
We're in the 168th lap of 200 for the men's Little 500 race. 7 teams on the lead lap. Beta Theta Pi in the green jersey, Black Key Bulls, the Phi Delts, Cutters, Sigma Chi, Theta Chi, and Delta Tau Delta. As we begin to make our move for the final push here in this race.
A good exchange there by the Betas. We've seen great exchanges by them all day.
Yeah, it really wasn't. Since Delta Tau Delta, it looks as if they're going to do an exchange on this lap. They really upped the pace and forced Beta Theta Pi to really burn some matches to get back in there. But
and that was William Craigie getting off the bikes for Beta Theta Pi. That is their sprinter. I think we're heading down to Hans. What do you have in the Phi Delta pit?
I'm in the Phi Delta pit with assistant coach Josh Beatty. Josh, you guys have placed second the past 2 years. Do you have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder?
Well, I think everybody's gunning for Cutters this year just because they've been pretty good the last 5 years. Really what we're trying to do is focus on how we can take advantage of opportunities and, ride our own race.
Now, you guys, if I had to guess, you might pull the classic Phi Delta move, ride a couple 2 to 3 laps fast at the end of the race, exchange and repeat, and then set up Steve for the sprint. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Well, the end of the race is always chaos, so it's always just being aggressive. If you're passive towards the end, you're going to give other people the opportunity, so you got to take advantage of them.
Steven's off the bike right now. Is the plan to rest him until the final sprint?
I think he's going to drink a couple beers, maybe have a pizza, and see how it goes.
Let's see if that proves to be a good strategy for you. Good luck.
Lance. Well, Josh down there kind of sharing a little bit of humor with us, but what is happening is Sven Gardner's on the bike for Phi Delta, and Jacob Rowland also did a big set. So Phi Delta is in a situation where they can rest Steve Sharp, their sprinter, which is really helping them.
Beer and pizza definitely play an integral role in this weekend. It's just a question of when, if it's before or after the podium.
Yeah, Josh was pulling our leg a little bit there. I've known Josh for years and raced against him in the late 90s and early 2000s. He was more disciplined than that. He knows he's pulling our legs.
Looks like Beta Theta Pi getting ready to do an exchange here on this next lap. Notice that the teams are all doing short sets right now. Lots of exchanges going on.
And Beta Theta Pi especially, and you kind of have to wonder, it must be an issue with stamina. I don't know how big a sets they can do, and that's fine. Then you just need to continue to get those gaps. But exchanges add risk, right? So if you can do the 15-lap set, you're eliminating some of the risk, which Beta's adding with those shorter sets.
Well, we've seen it in years past that it may be a great idea to come in and do a last handoff to give somebody, but if you do it too late and anything wrong happens that costs you a couple seconds, that can certainly cost you the race.
Right, and you think about too late at exchanges. Last year, we saw Phi Delta Theta exchange when they're on the last lap, and that's certainly something that they're hoping to not do this year.
Hitting another lull, the teams are just happy to ride on the front, kind of watch each other, sizing each other up, who looks good.
Well, it looks like Cutters and Sigma Chi almost having a conversation right at the front of that pack.
Right, comfortable. At 173, they're not quite getting those fast twitch muscles going yet, and you see them 8 or 9 wide. It's pedestrian.
Let's use Dylan's term. They're riding right now. They're not racing.
Right, it's a pedestrian pace out there at this point in time.
Cutters in a familiar spot. 5 straight victories in Little 500. Nobody's ever done that. 12 overall. Trying to make it 6 straight years of wins and capture title number 13.
and you kind of wonder who would finish right now for the Cutters. You see Kevin DePass on the bike for the Cutters, certainly a returning rider, and who I had thought of as one of their strongest sprinters. Just fighting right now, holding on to Phi Delta Theta, but with Kevin on the bike at 174, you wonder, oh, Kevin's down!
Spun down.
Cutters is down.
And now we've got a pile up in front. Cutters get back up. They're on the bike. Yellow flag is out. They'll have to hold position. Really just a straightaway behind as we have 175 laps in the books.
Black Key Bull's down as well. They have to hold position. The gap's not that big. It's a couple of seconds.
And they need to be careful not to creep. We saw Sigma Chi get a 10-second penalty earlier from creeping, and right there in turn 4.
Again, you know, because of the track conditions, he just slid out. He was pedaling really quickly around that corner, hit some of the soft section of the track. You know, the tires, they're using kind of like cyclocross tires, right? They have like a little bit of tread on them, but clearly not enough to keep him from crashing.
And they didn't need that additional bike because Kevin was able to react to it so quickly, and that's exactly what you want to have happen. Yeah. You saw a couple slides into second there with Kevin, and then Black Key Bulls coming into him.
With the yellow flag out, this will shorten the race.
Well, right, because they're burning up laps right now. Cutters are going to have to do a really...
And we're racing right now. We're back under green with Beta Theta Pi and Phi Delta Theta.
And Black Key Bulls and Cutters are together. They're going to have to work together to regain contact with the front group. Beta Theta Pi putting the screws down along with Phi Delts because they know that the Cutters are off the back. This could totally change the outcome of the race.
Absolutely, full gas. And it's just a question, you got Delta Tau Delta sitting fourth. Are we going to get teams to start to pull together and to string this out and to make the Cutters pay for that mistake?
Is this the time to pull the pin?
This is the time to pull the pin. There's no question. After a 5-time defending champion, can the fraternity step up to the game and react? Sven Gartner right now on the bike for Phi Delta Theta is certainly trying to do that. And I see this coming back together pretty quickly because Kevin's got a lot of strength and you've got a long string out. So as Dylan said, they may not be able to drop the Cutters, but maybe somebody can cue off of this acceleration that you're seeing with the counterattack as Beta Theta Pi is doing. But I see a rider out in the Beta Theta Pi pit. Looks like an exchange for the Betas.
Also, Black Key Bulls are going to try to do an exchange, which is, I don't know, that could be difficult because their rider just closed the gap, remade contact with the front group. Cutters also did an exchange. Clearly not the most ideal time to do an exchange, but they're trying to set it up for the last 20 laps.
Black Key Bulls passed up the exchange.
Okay.
Right, so the Black Key Bulls rider with a little bit, he wasn't the first rider to go down, but the second, but able to make up that ground on his own with a pretty impressive effort right now.
Rafferty really pushing for Black Key Bulls.
Well, that's right now. Cutters trying to regain contact.
So let's see what happened. The Cutters rider just sliding out there on the outside. We talk about that groove a lot here on the track. He's 4 or 5 feet out and just missed that groove. Different track conditions today with the wind and the dry conditions caused for a little loose cinders in that wreck. Now Cutters have got themselves trying to close it. Quarter lap down.
Harbison on the bike to the Cutters.
Phi Delta Theta again on the front, really turning the screws to Cutters right now.
But does Delta Tau Delta pull through? And I don't see it. I don't see it happening. Now is the time to pull the pin. They're taking advantage of this Phi Delta Theta effort, throwing down some strong laps here by Phi Delts.
Check that quarters. They come here at the start-finish line.
See, and this just plays into the Cutters' plan. If these guys don't really take this opportunity to put Cutters out of the race.
20 laps to go.
And the gap's coming down just a little bit from a quarter gap on the Cutters. The Phi Delts came in for an exchange there and leaves Beta out, but Beta's been riding short sets, and you see a rider out for them.
The Cutters have been involved in 2 wrecks today.
That's right. Cutters and Black Key Bulls together right now, trying to remake contact with the lead group here.
And Betas is going to come in for an exchange. You really need, you talk about pull the pin. Now is a decision that Delta Tau Delta needs to make. Are they going to pull the pin and right away? They're on their own for a minute. As the Beta rider slips now, right? He's all over the top two, skimming on the ground. Delta Tau Delta's got about a 300-meter lead right now on Beta Theta Pi. Or Phi Delta's closing it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Phi Delta's able to pull through right there and get to second place.
Do you make the race? And I do see Delta Tau Delta digging deep right now. 181 in the books. This is the time. And Phi Delta Theta trying to close it.
Delta Tau Delta looking to set up for an exchange. And they're over by the cutters on turn 3. Delta Tau going to have the handoff and try to maintain their lead.
Right at the top of your screen, you can see the cutters coming out of turn 2. Almost a full straightaway down off Delta Tau Delta right now. Delta Tau Delta really turning the screws.
Nick Leonard on the bike.
And both of these teams are coming in for exchanges, right? Phi Delta and Beta. And Delta has somebody fresh on the bike, just accelerating right now.
Well, Jason, I think what we're going to find out is with what Delta Tau Delta is doing right now. They have a commanding lead. Are they going to have enough left by the time we get to lap 199 to try to finish it out at 200?
Well, this is it. They're trying to make the race right now for Delta Tau Delta. And the best thing he can do is just put his head down and go as hard as he can, because if he does get caught, it's going to be really hard to recover. They could do an exchange, put one of the other riders in fresh. We have Pi Theta Pi, Phi Delta Theta really working together right now to keep Cutters off the back. Cutters has like a 20-meter gap to close. Delta Tau Delta continuing to increase their lead with no wind right now on the head, front or back stretch. It's actually to their advantage right now.
Yeah, Delta are strong, right? They won Team Pursuit this year. RJ Stewart, the winner of individual time trials. Delta certainly has some strength, and they're showing all kinds of panache right now, throwing it down with this, what I see as it's about a 200-meter gap that they have over Beta Theta Pi and Phi Delta Theta. And then you have Black Key Bulls, Theta Chi, Sigma Chi.
Looks like Delta Tau Delta is going to do an exchange.
Okay.
They do.
And the Cutters are still on the lead lap, about a straightaway now away from Delta Tau Delta.
Delta Tau Delta.
All kinds of excitement. I wonder why the Delta Tau Delta rider is so far out coming around that corner there. It really surprised me after we've been seeing the best spot as the group.
But look at
Phil Soika
Beta Theta Pi doing another exchange.
They're really, you've got to like this aggressive nature of the Delts right now.
They weren't aggressive all afternoon until the end. They saw an opportunity, they've seized it, and they're going all in.
Yeah, it's bike racing, right? You got to wait till the right time, and here with 186 in the books, it's absolutely the right time for Delta Tau Delta to be aggressive.
Started from the 10 spot. Trying to become the first team other than the Cutters to win a little 500 in the last 6 years.
Phi Delta Theta doing an exchange there. Delta Tau Delta is still out by themselves. It looks like our front 5 teams are going to come together. Right. Cutters, Sigma Chi, Beta Theta Pi,
Theta Chi, all grouping together. Kind of, it's one team against the group right now. It's one team against 4 or 5 that are chasing.
Well, that's right now. Now these five teams all chasing Delta Tau Delta are going to have to work together, or else Delta Tau Delta is going to ride away with the race.
And this is where you've played your cards at this point, right, Dylan? Either you win solo or you probably give up the sprint. And they're playing their cards correctly and just going for it big right now with the breakaway win.
Well, they've got about a straightaway lead, and Soika passed up the opportunity to do an exchange, and he's going to do another lap.
I think that was the right call, because if he didn't exchange right there, he would throw his teammate right in with the front 5 and lose the gap that he has right now. So it looks like they might exchange on this next lap. 10 laps to go.
Glenn Gartner on the front for the teams trying to chase Delta Tau Delta. Gartner riding for the Phi Delts.
Phi Delts doing a lot of work right now. Beta Theta Pi doing some work pulling through. And here's the Delta exchange. They're off the front. It's a bike exchange, which is a little bit slower than a rider exchange. You can see the group closing now.
That's right. And Beta Theta Pi just stayed in exchange, so their riders relatively fresh and might be able to close that gap. Sigma Chi coming through right now.
Oh, but Delt's not letting up. And
they put RJ Stewart on the bike.
That could be a differentiating factor. That would be the rider to finish the race if you are Delts. And so you see him not slowing down and going for it in a big way.
Can he do the last 10 laps?
He probably, well, I think he's strong enough to do the last 10 laps, but I don't think he'll do 10. I think you'll see a couple exchanges. He may give it off and then get it back, but he's trying to establish a good gap to the Cutters right now, who are about 150 meters back.
I mean, really amazing. The Cutters have basically rode right through the field, and they're about to, I mean, they might be able to close this gap with 9 laps to go. Beta Theta Pi and Phi Theta Pi both losing traction.
Thomas Walsh really throwing it down for the Cutters right now, trying to close it. He's got a little distance on the 3rd and 4th teams.
Delta Tau Delta coach just waving on his rider. It looks like the Cutters are going to come do an exchange, get a fresh rider in there to try to close that gap.
They'll put Tim Nixon back on the bike.
And then a group back up a little bit with Theta Chi, Phi Delta Theta, and Beta Theta Pi.
8 laps to go.
And don't forget about Sigma Chi, who you can see there in red. Sigma Chi just came in for an exchange. Oh, and you see Beta's hustling. Beta's has gone down on the front stretch with Theta Chi. Oh, that crushes their chances here with 192 in the books.
Yeah, they're done. Beta Theta Pi, there's no way they can take that back. Cutters and Phi Delts working together right now to bring back Delta Tau Delta. Has almost a half a lap lead right now.
Oh, and Rich's question with how much can RJ Stewart do, that stands right now because he has not slowed down at all. The man has showed all kinds of guts. He's got a 1/4 lap lead on the field.
7 laps to go. This is really the excitement that we've been waiting for all day, when the riders were really just riding around the track, waiting for the race to happen with 20 laps to go.
Stewart continuing on the bike.
And the Delts were just kind of following exchanges, waiting for their opportune time, and they followed enough where the next thing you know, they had a gap and they were able to run with it.
Well, that's right. The Cutters crashing there was really what opened up the, box of opportunity that Delta Tau Delta took advantage of.
Walsh for the Cutters, Sharp on the bike for Phi Delts. They'll wave Sharp on again.
We've got Cutters, Sigma Chi, and Phi Delta Theta all together. They need to work together right now or they're not going to get that rider back. Delta Tau Delta is riding away with the race right now.
RJ Stewart putting a little distance between everybody. 5 laps to go.
Cutters swinging up, letting the Phi Delta Theta rider pull through. Sigma Chi sitting on second wheel. These 3 riders have got to work together. 5 laps to go. 1/4 lap down on Delta Tau Delta.
And Phi Delts, nothing to wait for now. They've got Steven Sharp on the bike. He is their sprinter, but he's got to close this down. RJ Stewart from Delta Tau Delta just showing all kinds of grit right now off the front.
Can he be strong enough to finish off the race and do the final 10 laps and get Delta Tau Delta the win?
He's not going anywhere at this point, Rich, because he has not shed any ounce of that lead. He has just held it and held it strong.
Cutters are going to do an exchange and put Kevin DePass, their sprinter, back in the race.
And it's about a straightaway. Delta has about a straightaway lead. And RJ Stewart's been on the bike since what, lap 190, 191?
190.
He did this in team pursuit. He led his team to victory. And can he do it here on his own in the 62nd running of World 500?
3 laps to go.
Well, the Cutters have their...
So the Delta flat, the 14, the Beta Theta Pi.
both Delta Tau Delta. No, it looks like Cutters might be doing an exchange on this.
I thought they were going to put the pass on last time, then they passed him up. And they'll get number 1 in this time as it's Nixon to hand it off to the Cutters, trying to do a last gasp effort to try to get to 6 in a row, or will the streak end at 5, and will it be Delta Tau Delta?
2 laps to go.
R.J. Stewart out in front.
I got to watch on that last lap, and he's riding 36-second laps, you know, with laps in his legs, and he got on at 190. He's doing a heck of a job to hold this.
And he's even stretched it out a bit. Stewart in his senior year. Young man, a native of Indianapolis, and he's got the white flag. And he's got the lead and a lap to go to capture the little 500. What a performance by R.J. Stewart. Delta Tau Delta started in the 10th spot. Delta Tau Delta and R.J. Stewart are going to win the Little 500 in 2012.
You see the pit. Phi Delta Theta has come in second. Now Sigma Chi in third. Cutters in fourth. And it's 3 years in a row in second for Phi Delta Theta, and a new champion this year with Delta Tau Delta.
Let the celebration begin.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Delta Tau Delta waited and waited and waited for the right opportunity. Unfortunately, Cutters sliding out, coming out of turn 4, just opened it up for them, and then they took advantage of it.
And it's an overdue victory for some of the coaching staff down there, Courtney Bishop and Ken Nowakowski. They are celebrating with some excited riders, and I've got to admit that's an impressive performance by R.J. Stewart to get on and just hold that lead for 10 laps.
They mimicked everything the Cutters have done, and now they've mimicked something the Cutters did the last 5 years. They have won the Little 500. Here's Pam with the winners.
It's a lot of work.
All right, I'm in the pit here with the new Little 500 champions, Delta Tau Delta. How does it feel, guys?
Amazing!
R.J. Stewart, amazing ride. What was going through your head? Did you ever doubt keeping going? What were you thinking?
It's my last race, my last set, my last lap. I had to keep going. We finished it with a bang.
And is this the first win for Delta Tau Delta ever?
1 for 62. First ever. 1 for 62. First ever. Yes.
Right. Thank you so much. Congratulations, guys. What an amazing race.
Thank you so much.
Well, they go back from the independents to the fraternities, and those are some happy young men with a memory that'll last forever.
Yeah, crowning a new champion is something that's pretty exciting here in the Little 500, and R.J. Stewart certainly earned it today. One thing that catches my mind, Dylan, his position on the bike did not change at all for those 10 laps. The guy knows how to time trial, and he just got dialed in and was able to finish it off.
Well, that's what I mean. These guys really saw that opportunity present itself when the Cutters crashed, and they were 100% committed to riding to the finish alone. He knew that he had 20 laps to ride. The team really came together. His position, he was focused. It's an entirely metered effort. He knew exactly what he needed to do. He's riding consistent lap times. Not the fastest lap times, not the slowest, but consistent. And consistency plays. It's a lot more efficient than, you know, what the Cutters were doing and all the other teams doing all of their exchanges and accelerating and decelerating. While they were all doing that, he was riding the same lap time, lap after lap after lap, and pulled it all together for the victory.
First ever championship for Delta Tau Delta, our unofficial results. Phi Delta's going to get a little tired of that second place finish.
Yeah, they're going to be a little bit burned out on that. And I tell you, another thing that comes to mind, you talked about emulating the Cutters. They chose that pit right next to the Cutters, so they knew what was happening at each moment in time, and it seemed to be a good choice today.
Well, maybe having that pit on the backside might become in vogue moving forward.
That's right. We might have to move the broadcast booth over there so we can see.
What a enjoyable afternoon of racing here at IU. And the fans treated to an outstanding race last night, the women's race and the men's race. A fantastic finish as well with all the teams clumped together. And until that, slip down by the Cutters, really anybody's race. But let's go back downstairs to Pam with the winning coach.
All right, so I'm here with Courtney Bishop. Courtney, how many races have you coached for the Little 500?
I think that's my 14th one. I was actually thinking about thanking every team I ever rode with, IMO Major Taylor, Team Major Taylor, Delta Tau Delta, obviously the Road Runners, but this is like my 15th race. We've been so close so many times, and we finally got there. It was unbelievable.
So what do you think made the difference this time? What allowed you to win?
I think the guys really believed in themselves, and I think when RJ got on the bike, there was just no way we had a series of 4 exchanges lined up to get us to the finish, and he waved us off. He was like, I got this. So, I mean, he was the man, and the guys backed him up so much. He spent so little time on the bike today that he was able to do that. Leonard, Momper, Phil Soika set him up. It was unbelievable. Ken Nowakowski, can't thank Ken enough for everything. We've been working together for so many years, and we were so due for this. It was unbelievable.
So was that the way you won? Was that planned, or did you just react to the situation? Did you?
The situation. We said, you know what? Why exchange if they're not closing ground on us? And so we said, you know what? As long as we're closing ground, as long as he's keeping us straightaway, keep him on the bike. And we had a scenario to line guys up, and he shook us. He was unbelievable.
So what are you going to do tonight to celebrate?
First off, I wanted to say hi to my kids. So I wanted to say hi to Jacob, Connor, and Abby. And Daddy will be home soon. But I tell you what, I think we're going to celebrate a little bit tonight for sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, that's some of the emotion and enthusiasm. Look at that. What a great scene. And, the coaches and the riders emotionally and physically spent right now.
They didn't leave anything to hold back today. They put it all out on the track, and that's a really deserving win for Delta Tau Delta and their fans.
Yeah, and it's just so great to see the fans and everybody so animated and excited. And I can tell you, as a rider, there's nothing more exhilarating than coming across the finish line with the crowd going crazy and cheering. You can't even hear yourself think. It's so loud.
RJ Stewart, Luke Momper, Nick Leonard, Phil Soika, the 4 for Delta Tau Delta, 2 seniors on there in Stewart and Leonard. They ride in 3 Little 500s. In their senior year, they get the victory and the trophy.
In second place, the runner today, ladies and gentlemen.
And you saw the Phi Delta Theta rider over there congratulating him. I tell you, that's something that's also pretty special here. We've talked about it a lot today, but a lot of times the teams take a lap and say their goodbyes and do the congratulations. So Phi Delta Theta, 3 years in second, certainly not anything to be ashamed of, and also showing the character to go over there and congratulate the Delts. Good ride today for the Phi Delts.
Steve Sharp, Sven Gartner, Jacob Rowland, and Matthew Habel. Phi Delta Theta coming in second place.
Yeah, the guy's clearly disappointed, but if there wasn't disappointment, there wouldn't be elation. Unfortunately, everybody can't win.
Well, 33 start, there's only one who gets the big trophy.
That's right.
And here are your champions, Delta Tau Delta. I think things will be hopping at the house tonight, boys.
Yeah, they certainly have some material for celebration.
It's a great Warner Trophy.
Kiss it. Kiss it.
First place finish for Delta Tau Delta, their first Little 500 championship. Gentlemen, some final thoughts on this 62nd edition of the men's Little 5.
For me, Rich, it's just phenomenal to see kind of what has happened here over, this is our 62nd running since 1951. This race continues to get better and better, and we continue to see, athleticism, but also the teamwork and also kind of the heart that people put into this race. And Courtney certainly put a lot of heart into it as a coach, and his riders gave that back to him today. So it's great to see another Little 500 champion, Delta Tau Delta.
Yeah, and it's just the sophistication of the riders and the teams and how well put together they are. Every year it gets better and better, and it's just a great example of what the students and the entire community here puts together for the race.
Well, it's such a fun event and such a wonderful sporting event, but let's not forget about what this is really about and helping out so many deserving students with scholarship money.
Right, and we've raised, with a huge crowd today, we've raised thousands of dollars for scholarships for working students, and over the years, you know, that comes to show. So Little 500 is always a great cause, and another year in the books here at Bill Armstrong Stadium.
You've been watching HDNet's exclusive coverage of the 62nd Little 500. The executive producer of HDNet Sports, tonight's director, Daryl Ewald. Line producer, Jerry Wetzel. Features producer, Mike Ricci. HDNet Engineering, Dan Neighbors, Lonnie Thomas, and Andrew Miranda. Our production manager, Chris Markwell. Post-production, Andy Edwards. Special thanks to the staff and students from the IU Student Foundation. For my partners, Dylan Casey, Jason Sonnenborn, Hans and Pam, Rich Cellini, goodbye from Bloomington.
I will miss most about my Little 500 experience is definitely my teammates. We're together all the time and spend so much time together, and it's just going to be fun to come back and watch them once I'm gone, but I'm definitely going to miss out on being a part of it.
I'd say the thing I'm going to miss most about the Little 500 is just all the great times I've had with my teammates over the years, going on training trips and doing the Nashville 90 and spending 4 or 5 hours out together. I mean, you run the full range of topics and really get to know these people better than anybody else in the entire world. And just all those memories I've had, I'm really going to treasure them for a very long time.
It's a time when you get really close with your teammates and even other teams on the track, and hopefully upon graduation I will have the chance to come back as an alumni and get involved in the Little 500 and other aspects of it as well.
Little 500, the race itself is only 2 hours long, and you know, quals is a couple minutes. But I mean, I think those really special moments are, you know, the preparation and, you know, the countless hours. I mean, 15 to 20 hours a week. So I mean, spending that much amount of time with, you know, 3 or 4 other guys is a pretty significant thing, and definitely going to miss that because I mean, it's something really special and builds a lot of good relationships over my college career.
Even though everyone has their own teams, it's really such an amazing community. From professors to the people working in the bike shops, just to the Bloomington community, to the riders themselves. Everyone loves the event. We get so much support, and it's really just been such a great experience.